Chapter 1821. My two junior brothers were killed near the eastern ridge. Zhen Weisheng said coldly. Ah. Everyone was stunned. Xiaohua also opened his eyes in shock and exclaimed. Martial uncle, where is it in the eastern ridge? I don't know either. Zhen Weisheng snorted coldly. If you know, you can tell me. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand. Kid, I've always been in the eastern ridge herb garden, and didn't even dare to come out of the formation. How would I know where it is? Forget it. Seeing that it was related to the lives of Zhen Jie's two disciples, Helpless could only smile bitterly and swear a blood oath in a low voice. Ha ha ha, Zhen Jie's expression eased and he laughed. Martial nephew Helpless, I can't do anything about it. My two disciples disappeared without a trace. Even you would be worried, right? I hope you can understand my feelings. Helpless could only smile bitterly and express his understanding. All right, since this has nothing to do with martial nephew Helpless, I still have one more thing. Zhen Jie raised his head and looked at Xiaohua. Xiaohua's heart trembled. He bowed and said, Senior, what is it? Show me your storage pouch. Yes, Xiaohua took off his storage pouch without hesitation. Zhen Jie waved his hand. Zhen Weisheng took it and opened it to take a look. Then, he handed it to Xiaohua and said curiously, I heard that you obtained a treasure in the Feather Immortal Assembly? Why isn't it in your storage pouch? Yes, martial uncle knows. That thing is extraordinarily heavy and can't be placed in a storage pouch. I've already lost a few storage pouches because of it. My heart ached so much that I threw it in the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden long ago. If martial uncle wants to see it, I can show it to you, Xiaohua said seriously. No need. Zhen Weisheng waved his hand and said, I'm sure you know that when you were training in the Netherworld, you met my sixth disciple, Xindong. I came here personally because I want to know, who was the Foundation Establishment Cultivator who killed Xindong? Since this person could kill Zhenming and hundreds of disciples from other sects, why did he leave you alive? You, and that cultivator, what kind of deal did you make? Xiaohua's mind spun rapidly. Soon after, he raised his eyebrows and said, I'll let Grandmaster Jin know. On that day, Junior was coerced by that cultivator to swear a heart oath. I can't reveal half a word about that cultivator. I hope Grandmaster can forgive me. Not waiting for Zhen Jie to speak, Zhen Wei snorted coldly and released the pressure of a foundation-building stage cultivator, suppressing Xiaohua completely. He sneered. How can my junior brother die in vain? Even if I have to ascend to the 9 heavens or descend to the 9 underworlds, this old man will still capture that cultivator for revenge. My master won't lower himself to your level, but this old man doesn't care about face. Today, whether you say it or not, you have to say it. Seeing that Zhen Jie and Zhen Weisheng were putting on a show and interrogating him, Xiaohua sneered in his heart. This Swallow Thunder Ridge is really too overbearing. They clearly know that I've already made a heart oath, yet they still insist on interrogating me. They have long stopped treating me as a fellow disciple. Presumably, they also went to look for Sun Shu and Qian Diheng. Firstly, the two of them didn't know the truth. Secondly, they also had backers. If they didn't say anything, then they wouldn't say anything. Xiaohua couldn't compare to the two of them. At the same time, he also understood why Mo Qingyuan let the 4 of them go so easily after casually making a heart oath. It turned out that Mo Qingyuan simply wasn't afraid of what the other 3 would say. As for Xiaohua, who knew the inside story, he didn't have enough confidence to capture him, so he could only give him a warning. Grandmaster Zhen Helpless and Zhuo Minghui both pleaded. Since Xiaohua has already made a heart oath, if he goes against it, I'm afraid it'll be detrimental to his cultivation. Alas, this old man doesn't care. Zhen Jie casually shook his head. But the relationship between those two is very deep. This old man. I'm afraid I can't interfere too much, right? What's there to worry about an aura-refining cultivator's heart oath? Zhen Qikue sneered and said. Moreover, Xiaohua hasn't built his foundation for so many years. How could he still have any hope of building his foundation? His cultivation can be considered to have come to an end today. It'd be better for him to tell us about that cultivator's situation, and let our Swallow Thunder Ridge owe him a favor. That's right, Junior Martial Brother Xiao. You're always trying to side with him. Now that Grandmaster Zhen has personally come here, such a big favor. If you don't say it now, when will you? Cui Hongshan glanced at Helpless and echoed. As for Helpless and Zhuo Minghui, although they didn't say anything, their expressions and gazes clearly showed that they had also somewhat given up Wei Sheng. Don't scare Xiaohua, Zhen Qikue said in an extremely amiable tone. Xiaohua, you can rest assured and speak. Our Swallow Thunder Ridge will repay you generously. Moreover, from now on, you'll stay in Myriad Thunder Valley. If that cultivator comes to seek revenge, this old man will be the first to not let him off. However, no matter how one looked at it, his fierce expression was still sinister. When Zhenwei heard this, he withdrew his spiritual aura and glared fiercely at Xiaohua. However, Xiaohua just stood there calmly. His gaze shifted back and forth between Zhen Jie, Zhen Mo, Helpless, and the others, not saying a single word. After waiting for a while, Xiaohua shook his head and said, This junior has already made a heart oath. Forgive this junior for not being able to speak clearly. Zhen Jie's gaze flashed, and he stared at Xiaohua like a knife. Although he didn't release his spiritual aura, the entire Immortal's Cave was already filled with a kind of silent oppression. What should I do? Xiaohua knew that Helpless was powerless to protect him, and could only find a way out himself. He unconsciously glanced outside the Immortal's Cave. However, he didn't know what kind of divine ability a Golden Core Cultivator could have to block his bright thunder escape. And once his strength was exposed, the matter of Zhen Ying and Zhen Hao would inevitably fall on his head. He feared that he couldn't stay in the Imperial Thunder sect any longer. Is Martial Nephew Helpless here? Just as he was extremely nervous, another crisp voice came from outside the Immortal's Cave. At the same time, a divine sense swept through the cave. The restrictions inside the Immortal's Cave didn't seem to have any effect. Hearing someone call him Martial Nephew again, Helpless felt even more helpless. His mouth was filled with endless bitterness. No one had ever come to Myriad Thunder Valley. He had always been tyrannical. Unexpectedly today, when he wanted to borrow the strength of his disciples' foundation building to gain face, he was repeatedly called Martial Nephew. Moreover, he was forced to make a heart oath. Who knew? Who would come again? What was going on? Zhen Jie's face also showed a trace of surprise, but then he suddenly understood. Without getting up, he flicked his sleeve and ordered, Wei Xing, go greet Martial Uncle Sun Ming on behalf of Master. Sun Ming? When Xiaohua heard this, he was overjoyed. If Sun Ming came, how could Sun Shu be far away? He probably didn't need to be a stray dog anymore. Everyone also heard this. Helpless knew the relationship between Xiaohua and Shui. They were also secretly happy, knowing that nothing bad would happen. Thus they hurriedly got up and followed Zhuo Minghui, Zhen Mo, and the others to greet Sun Ming. Xiaohua himself was very clear, standing in place without moving. Not long after, Sun Ming entered the Immortal's Cave under the escort of Helpless and the others. Behind Helpless and the others, Sun Shu and Shui also followed. The two of them clearly saw Zhen Weisheng, and guessed the reason for this matter. Two pairs of beautiful eyes looked at Xiaohua with concern. Sun Shu also slightly nodded at Xiaohua, obviously to let Xiaohua be at ease. Chapter 1822. Junior Sister Sun. How come you have time to come to my Thunder Shock Palace today? Zhen Jie stood up and cupped his hands. Hee, since senior brother Zhen can come to 10,000 Thunder Valley, what's so strange about little sister coming to take a look? Sun Ming returned the greeting and said with a smile. Although she was slightly younger than Zhen Jie, her cultivation was not weak. Moreover, Deafening Thunder Palace and Sun Thunder Palace had similar statuses. Sun Ming did not care that Zhen Jie said she came to Deafening Thunder Palace and immediately retorted, I came to ask my Thunder Shock Palace disciple if there is any news of I's disciple being killed. Zhen Jie of course will not show weakness, and keep mentioning Thunder Shock Palace. Sun Ming smiled faintly and casually sat beside Zhen Jie. She pointed and said, Just in time, I also have something to ask Xiaohua. Junior Sister Sun. Is this intentional? Zhen Jie's face changed. Sun Ming rolled her eyes at him. Am I so bored? Moreover, I also did not know that senior brother Zhen is here. I's matter is not over yet. After I ask, Zhenjie said unhappily. You ask, I am not in a hurry. Sun Ming interrupted Zhenjie and said. Good. Zhenjie raised his head again and sneered. Xiaohua, you really don't want to give this old man face? Xiaohua quickly bowed and said. Ancestor Zhen's face is naturally bigger than the heavens, but this junior really does not dare to not give face to the heavens, does not dare to not give face to the heart's oath. Pa Zhenjie slapped the jade chair and stood up. He finally released the aura of a golden core cultivator and said with a grin, although you are a junior, if you don't know how to respect, then this old man will also. However, at this moment, Sun Ming also released her aura and blocked Zhenjie's aura to the side. What? Junior sister Sun wants to interfere with my Thundershock Palace's affairs? Zhenjie said with a grin. So it's your Thundershock Palace's internal affairs. Sun Ming was very surprised. She deliberately covered her mouth and said, looks like senior brother Zhen took Thunder Ming's order. This Zhenjie was somewhat embarrassed. Let little sister see the order. Little sister definitely won't take half a step out of line. Sun Ming said in all seriousness. Zhenjie's eyes constricted, and he said coldly, Junior apprentice sister Sun, are you not planning to give I face? It's nothing, Sun Ming hurriedly waved her hand and said. I also have an extremely important matter to ask Xiaohua. Senior brother Zhen treated Xiaohua like this, how can I still ask about my matter? Good. Zhenjie said good 3 times in a row, then waved his hand and said. Then this old man will give you face and let you ask first. This is not good. Sun Ming also waved her hand and said. Xiaohua is your Thunderquake Palace's disciple. Moreover, senior apprentice brother Zhen also came first. Regardless of sentiment or reason, it should be senior apprentice brother Zhen who asked first. How could little sister dare to walk in front of senior apprentice brother? Yu Zhenjie was very embarrassed and angry. It was a bit difficult to deal with. Oh, martial uncle Zhen, please allow Junior to ask at this time. Sun Shu opened his mouth and said. The matter martial uncle asked. It seems that Junior has already answered that day, right? Junior and Xiaohua were together. What Junior saw is what Xiaohua saw. Junior doesn't know who the cultivator who killed senior apprentice brother Zhenjie was, and Xiaohua naturally doesn't know either. You seem to have nothing to ask, right? Junior apprentice sister Sun, when seniors are talking, it seems that there's no reason for juniors like us to interrupt. Zhen Weisheng sneered and said, besides, you're not Xiaohua. How do you know that he doesn't know that cultivator? Ha. Senior apprentice brother Zhen is wrong. Sun Shu laughed and said, in front of facts, regardless of whether it's seniors or juniors, they're all the same. No one can say that white is black. Moreover, although I'm not Xiaohua, I was with Xiaohua in the netherworld. I clearly know all of his actions and deeds. I can guarantee with my life that Xiaohua absolutely doesn't know that cultivator. Hee, to guarantee with your life, you're quite generous. Zhen Weisheng sneered. That's right. Xiaohua's conduct is magnanimous. Even I admire him. Since I's disciple can guarantee it, I can also guarantee it. Sun Ming said with a smile. Shui, who was standing by the side, had a worried expression on her face. Unfortunately, her cultivation was too low and she couldn't interrupt. She could only stick her gaze on Xiaohua and place her love in Xiaohua's heart. Sun Ming, are you going to oppose me today? Zhenjie finally couldn't help but stare at Sun Ming and ask. Seeing Zhenjie standing in front of her and lowering his head to show off his might, Sun Ming's expression also turned cold. She stood up and said, What? Zhenjie, I'm going to go against you? What can you do to I? Audacious. Zhenjie's beard and eyebrows fluttered, magic power surging around his body. Hee. Sun Ming's body also faintly flashed with brilliance. Clearly, she was also preparing. Two seniors seeing this, helplessness hurriedly stood up, bowed and said, Let's talk things over. He was actually happy that Sun Ming came, but 2 golden core cultivators fighting, he couldn't stand it. Helplessness, is martial nephew here? While swords were drawn, another voice rang out in the cave. Why are the 2 of you here? Who is it? Helplessness was completely speechless. The strength in his body seemed to have suddenly completely disappeared. The situation in this 10,000 Thunder Valley had long been out of his control. Zhen Mo, Zhuo Minghui and the others were naturally astonished. They sigh. Their moods had never been as strange as today. A small foundation establishment cultivator celebration. Actually, 3 golden core cultivators came. As for Sun Ming and Zhen Jie, their expressions also changed. They said in unison, "Gantian, senior brother Qian?" The two of them cried out. They didn't dare to be negligent. Ignoring the conflict between the two of them, they hurriedly walked out of the cave and went outside to welcome them. When Helplessness heard that it was actually a Heavenly Thunder Palace disciple, he was even more shocked. This Gantian was a late-stage golden core cultivator of the Heavenly Thunder Palace. In the past, Helplessness had only heard of him. Even if he had met him a few times, he simply wouldn't pay attention to him. He didn't expect that he would actually come today. Could it be still for Xiaohua? However, Xiaohua's face was also filled with confusion. He was currently looking at Sun Shu. Sun Shu slightly frowned, seemingly deep in thought. This time, even Zhen Weisheng and the others went out to welcome them. Xiaohua naturally didn't need to stay in the cave, and stood behind everyone. After waiting for half the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, they saw 2 cultivators flying over from the distance. Their appearances were actually extremely similar. The person in front was around 50 years old. He was wearing a green Taoist robe. His hair and beard were all white, but his face only had slight wrinkles. His facial features, the arrogance in his eyes, and the way he moved, was exactly the same as that Qian Diheng behind him, that senior brother Qian who had followed Xiaohua all the way to the netherworld to gain experience. In an instant, Xiaohua understood why this Qian Diheng was so favored in the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Why was he able to obtain a high-level protective magic treasure as early as the beginning of the 12th layer of the Qi refining stage? Chapter 1823. Greetings Senior Brother Gantian. Zhen Jie and Sun Shu bowed respectfully. Gantian's arrogance was ingrained in his bones. He waved his hand slightly and helped the two up. When Helplessness and Zhen Mo bowed and greeted him, Gantian actually took a step forward and used his hand to block Helplessness's arm. He squeezed out a smile. No need to be so polite. I heard that junior nephew's disciple reached foundation establishment, so I came over to take a look. I have long heard that junior nephew Helplessness has been guarding 10,000 Thunder Valley. You have worked hard and contributed a lot. Today I am here. As expected, a good teacher produces a good disciple. Helplessness panicked. Just like when he went to see the sect leader with Xiaohua, he stuttered. Junior doesn't dare to accept such praise. 10,000 Thunder Valley used to be the core of our lightning controlling sect. Now its use is slowly disappearing. Kiki, that's why I value your steadiness. Gantian smiled. If it was a proper and important matter, the sect leader would pay attention to it every day. Anyone would feel that it was worth it. As for 10,000 Thunder Valley, it has already faded from the sect leader's attention. You have been guarding it for decades and centuries. This is the true backbone of our lightning controlling sect. Thank you, Senior Master, for your praise. Helplessness was about to cry. Senior Brother Gantian, let's talk inside the cave, Zhen Jie said softly. Gantian nodded his head and entered first, not bothering with anyone else. Qian Diheng appeared in midair of 10,000 Thunder Valley. He had always been obedient. However, when Gantian was swarmed in and Zhen Weisheng and the others raised their hands to invite him in, he showed his true nature. Qian Diheng waved his hand and said impatiently, "You all go in first. I just reached foundation establishment and can't walk in front." Zhen Weisheng didn't dare to show any unhappiness on his face, laughing softly. Junior brother Qian really knows etiquette. Then he also entered the cave. When Cui Hongshan smiled and wanted to talk to Qian Diheng cupped his hands and turned his head towards Sun Shu. Senior Sister Sun, I didn't expect you to have reached foundation establishment. When did you reach foundation establishment? Perhaps I can change my way of addressing you as Junior Sister Sun. Sun Shu pulled Shui forward and told them the time with a smile. Qian Diheng was dumbfounded. he said with a dispirited face. Damn it, are you kidding me? The time is the same. I still want to call you senior sister. Haha, cultivate well. Sun Shu covered his mouth and laughed. When it's time to condense your Dan, you still have hope. Hee, it's nothing. Qian Diheng winked and waved his hand. Junior martial brother Xiao, come here quickly. Accompany your senior martial brother into the cave. Damn it, even if I can't be Sun Shu's senior brother, I'm more than qualified to be your senior brother. Upon seeing Qian Diheng's smile, Xiaohua faintly shook his head. He took a few steps forward and bowed. Junior Xiaohua greets martial uncle Qian. Junior is currently an aura refining cultivator, so I don't dare to call any foundation building senior martial brother, or junior martial brother. Ah. Qian Diheng's face stiffened. After all, when Xiaohua sent him a message earlier, he still called him senior martial brother Qian. Why did he suddenly change now? But when he heard Xiaohua say, call any foundation building senior martial brother or junior martial brother, he immediately understood. He turned to look at Cui Hongshan with a sinister look on his face. Although Cui Hongshan was a disciple of the Cui family, he still couldn't be compared with Qian Diheng, a direct disciple of a cultivation sect. When he saw that Qian Diheng, who he usually couldn't get close to, was glaring at him, his heart skipped a beat. But Qian Diheng's sinister look only appeared for a moment before it was replaced with a smile. He patted Xiaohua's shoulder and said, Junior martial brother Xiao, I'm not the kind of person who forgets my roots. Only those beasts who just reached the foundation building realm don't know how to respect themselves, don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, and don't treat junior martial brother Xiao as a senior martial brother. Didn't I say it already? Even if I reach the great ascension stage, you're still my junior martial brother. Bah. Xiaohua didn't say anything, but Sun Shu spat and said angrily, why are you only thinking about reaching the great ascension stage? What if junior martial brother Xiao reaches the great ascension stage before you? TSK Qian Diheng shamelessly said, I'm older than him. Even if he reaches the great ascension stage, he still has to call me senior martial brother. This shameless. Xiaohua secretly laughed in his heart, but he also felt a burst of warmth in his heart. Just as Xiaohua was about to say something, Qian Diheng's expression changed again. He looked like a child who had admitted his mistake and said in a low voice, Junior martial brother Xiao Sai, don't blame me. Grandfather. Sai, I didn't want to say it, but you know, I can't help it. Qian Diheng's words were said without reason. Cui Hongshan and the others were puzzled, but Xiaohua immediately understood. At the same time, Sun Shu also smiled bitterly and said, Junior martial brother Xiao, I'm also ordinary. Then he looked at Xue as if he wanted to ask for help. Xue didn't say a word. Her eyes never left Xiaohua. At this time, her bright eyes were slightly swaying, like rippling waves of a spring. Xiaohua could see Xue's infatuation with a glance. Hehe, it's okay. Xiaohua put his hand on Qian Diheng's shoulder and said with a smile, You're my senior martial brother. It's a pity that my grandfather is not your grandfather. Qian Diheng was very distressed and tapped his forehead with his finger. I've already delayed for so long, I understand. Xiaohua smiled at Sun Shu, and the smile in his eyes made Sun Shu's heart feel at ease. Senior martial brother Qian, why aren't you going in? Xiaohua loosened his arm. Yes, I'll go in now. After Qian Diheng finished explaining the matter, he obediently led the way into the immortal's cave, followed by Sun Shu. Xue also went in with Xiaohua, leaving them behind. Cui Hongshan and the rest of the gang of scoundrels looked at each other in dismay, their eyes revealing a trace of puzzlement, and also a lot of regret. They never thought that the Heavenly Thunder Palace's dandy would actually have such a good relationship with the shocking Thunder Palace's loose cultivators. Zhen Qikue gritted his teeth. After all, when Qian Diheng appeared, he immediately stole the limelight. Moreover, Qian Diheng didn't even look at him. However, even if he hated, what could he do? He could only follow Cui Hongshan into the cave and obediently stand at the two sides. At this time, there was a late-stage Jindan cultivator sitting in the cave. Who among the disciples dared to sit down? At the head of the cave, Gantian sat in the middle. Sun Ming and Zhen Jie accompanied him on the two sides. Helplessness and Zhuo Minghui sat on the chair on the right. Zhen Mo and the others carefully sat on the left. Junior Marshal Brother Zhen. Why did you come to 10,000 Thunder Valley today? Gantian and the others had finished their greetings and asked with a smile. Chapter 1824. Zhen Jie was thinking about it and couldn't understand why Gantian came. Naturally, he didn't dare to say much. Just as he was about to reply, he saw Xiaohua walk in with Qian Dihing and Sun Ming. He frowned and looked at Zhen Weisheng, giving him a signal. He then smiled. 10,000 Thunder Valley is the most important place in our Jinlei Palace. I heard that junior nephew's disciple reached foundation building, so I came over to congratulate you. Also, I wanted to ask Xiaohua a few things. And did junior brother ask someone to ask Hunger? Gantian asked directly. Zhen Jie felt a little awkward, but he didn't dare to not reply. He smiled. I had a disciple fall, so I can't not ask. Is it because of the Nether Lotus? Gantian said impolitely. No, that thing is useful for foundation building, but what can it do for golden core cultivators? Zhen Jie didn't dare to say anything else and could only argue. And have you finished asking? I also have things to ask Xiaohua. Gantian's overbearingness was obvious. I have finished. Zhen Jie looked at Sun Ming opposite him and said softly. Oh. What did you ask? What did Xiaohua reply? Gantian asked him politely. Zhen Jie smiled. Like what Dihing said. Due to an oath, Xiaohua couldn't say much. Moreover, he didn't know. Seeing that, I didn't ask anymore. Damn, this fellow Xiaohua was speechless. Zhen Jie didn't ask, but Zhen Weisheng did. However, Xiaohua couldn't say and others wouldn't either. And not bad. Zhen Jie nodded. As seniors, we should understand that. Since the disciples have made a heart oath, they should say many things that they should, and don't say anything that they shouldn't. Yes, I understand. Zhen Jie didn't have the arrogance from before and said with a smile. Are you done with your matter? Yes, I don't have anything else. Zhen Jie's fierce face became unusually friendly in front of Gantian. What about you? Gantian turned his head and said to Sun Ming straightforwardly. Sun Ming smiled bitterly. I probably came for the same reason as senior brother Gantian. Gantian Ao glanced at Sun Ming and said mercilessly. When I saw you here, I knew. Have you asked Xiaohua? Not yet, So you're saying that this old man will be one step ahead of you? Yes, senior brother Qian is indeed one step ahead of I. Senior brother Qian, please. Sun Ming's mouth was bitter, but she didn't dare to say anything. Gantian and Sun Ming's words were really weird. No matter if it was Zhen Jie or helplessness, they couldn't understand what was going on. However, they understood that since even Gantian, who was at the late golden core stage, had come, what they wanted to ask wouldn't be a small matter. All right. Gantian looked around and said coldly, since everyone is here, I won't chase you away on behalf of junior nephew Wuji. Apart from Xiaohua and Heng. All of you swear a heart oath. You can't tell anyone about what happened today. Otherwise, even if a heart oath is useless, this old man will still take his life. Helplessness was stunned. This was the second time he was forced to swear a heart oath today. However, looking at Zhen Jie's dark and gloomy face, he felt refreshed for no reason. His mood was 100 times better than the first time. Cough cough. Helplessness stood up and bowed. Junior Master Qian, Junior is the master. Junior will swear a heart oath. Left and right, one heart oath was a heart oath, two was the same. Helplessness didn't have any burden and swore it right away. Zhuo Minghui saw her husband stand up and also swore a heart oath. After waiting for everyone to swear, Sun Ming sighed and also opened her mouth. Zhen Jie's face was already torn to shreds. However, he didn't dare to not swear a heart oath. He only hesitated slightly. Gantian scoffed coldly, and the entire cave seemed to become colder. Yes, senior brother Qian, don't be anxious. Zhen Jie hurriedly opened his mouth and swore a heart oath. However, when the heart oath was swore, his heart relaxed for no reason. Since everyone here swore a heart oath, who would say that he was forced to swear a heart oath? And Gantian was very satisfied. He looked at Xiaohua with a gentle gaze and said, Xiaohua, come over for a moment. Yes, Junior greets Senior Master Qian. Xiaohua hurriedly went up and bowed. Very good. Xiaohua, I heard Heng talk about you. You took care of Heng a lot during the trial. I will remember it in my heart. Although Gantian was thankful, his tone was calm. I think you already know why I came here today, right? Junior knows. Xiaohua's face revealed a bitter smile. Then Gantian's voice actually trembled as he hesitated. That thing. Do you still have it? Even if it's half a drop, it's fine. Xiaohua saw that Gantian's gaze seemed to be able to pierce through him. He knew that if it wasn't for Qian Di Heng, or if Gantian still had a bit of morality, he would have already snatched it. Thus he reached out and touched his nose, smiling bitterly. Okay, Senior Master knows. If Junior doesn't have it, would Junior still be a Qi Refinement Realm cultivator? Good. Gantian let out a long breath. His expression relaxed a lot. Where is it? It's in Junior's storage bag. Xiaohua raised his brows and said. Hearing this, Zhen Jie's eyes flashed as he glanced at Zhen Weisheng. Zhen Weisheng also bit his lips. He didn't expect that the storage bag that passed through his hands would have a treasure that even a late Golden Core Realm cultivator would covet. Take it out. Gantian smiled. And Junior will give it to Senior right away. Xiaohua said. Junior originally wanted to give this thing to Master, but because there is only one drop, Junior is in a difficult position. Just now, I wanted to give it to a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator as a congratulatory gift, but he didn't want it. This is also Senior Master Qian's fate. What? Xiaohua wants to give this thing to me? Cui Hongshan was dumbfounded on the spot. I actually pushed away a treasure that even a core formation senior wanted? But then Cui Hongshan laughed hoarsely. How is that possible? Xiaohua doesn't want such a precious thing. Why would he give it to me? However, another voice crazily shouted in his heart. How is it so impossible? Didn't he want to take it out just now? Sigh Xiaohua's words. Let's not talk about Cui Hongshan. Just one sentence from Xiaohua already made him worried. Moreover, Xiaohua said that he would take it out, but he didn't take it out. Gantian's face couldn't help but turn cold. Senior Master Qian, don't panic. Junior thinks so. Xiaohua hurriedly said. Just now, didn't Senior say? Even half a drop is fine? Can Senior just take half a drop? Gantian said coldly. What I want, there is no reason to bargain. Chapter 1825. Gantian coldly laughed as he rejected. However, after he finished speaking, he seemed to have thought of something. He glanced at Qian Diheng and said, I promised Heng, or that I wouldn't make things difficult for you. Your request isn't too much. After all, you also need this item. Forget it, I will agree to your request. Thank you, Senior Ancestor Qian. Xiaohua bowed happily. And I won't take it for free. You can ask Heng, or for the benefits I'll give you later. Gantian continued. Junior understands. Xiaohua clapped his hands and took out a jade box. It was obvious that this jade box was the same as the ones in his storage bag. The moment the jade box was taken out, Gantian stretched out his hand and a huge force appeared. Xiaohua didn't have any strength to resist as the jade box flew into Gantian's hands. Ha ha ha. Gantian swept it with his spiritual sense and immediately laughed. He waved his hand and a restriction blocked him. No one knew what he was doing within the restriction. After a while, Gantian removed the restriction and took the jade box in his hands. With a wave of his hand, the jade box flew into Xiaohua's hands. Xiaohua, who took the jade box, turned his head and bowed towards Sun Ming, Senior Ancestor Sun. I think you came for this, right? Sun Ming was slightly taken aback. She didn't hide it and nodded. Indeed. I have such intentions. Sai Xiaohua sighed in his heart. Qian Diheng said it clearly, and he had delayed for a long time before he had no choice but to tell Gantian. Sun Shu was probably the same, which was why Gantian and Sun Ming gathered in 10,000 Thunder Valley. However, this was also good. Xiaohua passed the jade box to Sun Ming and smiled bitterly. Junior didn't dare to use it because I was afraid that my talent wasn't good enough. If I still couldn't reach Foundation Establishment, my last hope would be destroyed. Since Senior came today, Junior knows that I have no fate with this item. I'll give it to senior ancestor Sun. Xiaohua Shui, who was originally very calm, couldn't help but cry out. She couldn't believe that Xiaohua didn't use it. Although Sun Ming's brows slightly furrowed, her hand still firmly caught the jade box. Moreover, she was still worried and opened the jade box to take a look. Only then did she put it into her storage bag and said, Xiaohua, this poor Taoist has received your favor. Ai's gift is also with Shui. I'll get her to give it to you later. Thank you, Grandmaster. As long as Grandmaster treats Shui well, Junior will be perfectly satisfied. Xiaohua said very calmly. Sun Ming laughed. Ai's own disciple. How can I not treat him well? Your words will make others think too much. If it were any other day, Shui would definitely be flushed with embarrassment, but at this moment, she was looking at Xiaohua with worry. After all, Zhongyao milk was a shortcut to the foundation establishment stage. And it was gone just like that. Xiaohua smiled, following which he took off his storage bag and placed it in front of Gantian. Senior Ancestor Qian, please take a look. I don't have anything else. I don't want others to make things difficult for me. All right. Gantian took it and opened the storage bag. After checking for a moment, he nodded. I know what you mean. Then he turned around and looked at everyone, saying coldly, this matter ends here. Not to mention the oath you all made before. If any disciple makes things difficult for Xiaohua because of this, then they are making things difficult for me. Zhen Jie and the others looked at one another. Gantian had been so mysterious for such a long time that he didn't know what to say. However, one thing he was sure of was that this thing was related to the foundation establishment stage, and the pregnancy of a baby. Something that even Sun Ming could use, he could use it too. However, Xiaohua's actions were obviously telling him that he only had the last drop. There was nothing else. Since Gantian was so happy and took over this matter, Gantian's cultivation would probably improve again. After the late Golden Core stage was the nascent soul stage. Although Zhen Jie was domineering, he was also an extremely smart person. He wouldn't make any unnecessary sacrifices for something that he didn't have anymore, so he closed his eyes in his heart. Xiaohua took the storage bag that Gantian threw over and bowed once more. Thank you, Senior Ancestor Qian, for helping me. And I hope that you will train hard. In the future, when you reach the foundation establishment stage, I will also congratulate you. Gantian was in a good mood as he waved his hand and smiled. It was obvious that he was preparing to leave. However, at that moment, a timid voice sounded out. Senior Ancestor Qian. I want to spar with Senior Brother Xiao. Is there a problem? Gantian, who was about to stand up, paused. He looked at the last disciple standing on the right and asked, whose disciple are you? I am a disciple of Thunder Palace's Yanlei Ridge. My master is Zhen Weisheng. It was Yan Xiefeng who spoke. This is the disciple of Ai's fourth disciple. Zhen Jie smiled apologetically. This child participated in the Feather Immortal Gathering last year, and actually got second place. He really helped my thunder controlling sect. Moreover, he is a thoughtful kid. When he heard that Xiaohua got first place in the Feather Immortal Gathering, he had the idea of sparring with him. Today, he insisted that I bring him over to get to know Xiaohua. I thought that this was a good chance to spar with someone from the same sect, so I agreed. I didn't think that senior brother would help Xiaohua and scare him. Only then did he gather his courage to ask for an idea, right? Damn, what does this have to do with me? Gantian waved his sleeves. His tone was the same as Qian Dihing's. I just don't want to make things difficult for Xiaohua. I didn't say anything else. If you all want to spar, then spar. The moment Gantian said this, the entire cave became lively. The disciple who was insulted by Xiaohua wanted to show off in front of Gantian. He smiled. Senior brother Xiao is a genius and doesn't want to spar with someone from the same sect. If you want to spar, you can only go to the Thunder Field. Thunder Field? What do you little kids know? You keep talking about Thunder Field. Zhen Jie smiled. Junior doesn't dare. Xiaohua hurriedly bowed and said, this junior is just speaking from the bottom of his heart. Since many disciples wanted to invite my myriad Thunder Valley's disciples to the Thunder Arena, then this junior might as well follow their wishes. Don't engage in some superficial exchange of pointers. This junior will directly accompany them to the Thunder Arena. Ha ha ha. Damn, you really have guts. Gantian obviously understood the situation of 10,000 Thunder Valley before coming, and also knew about Xiang Yang. At this moment when he heard what Xiaohua said, he rubbed his palms and sat down with interest. This Yan Xiefeng obviously didn't expect that they would directly go to the Thunder Field. He looked towards Zhen Weisheng. However, how would Zhen Weisheng dare to do anything in front of Gantian? He acted like he didn't hear anything. Little kid you. What's wrong? You don't dare to go to the Thunder Field? Gantian smiled as he looked at Yan Xiefeng. Junior naturally dares. Yan Xiefeng raised his chest and said, Good boy, things are getting out of hand. Xiaohua thought without any evil intentions. I have only entered the lightning controlling sect for a few years, and I have already taken the lives of several lightning controlling sect disciples. It seems like it isn't any less than killing disciples of other sects, right? This Yan Xiefeng. Why doesn't he know if he is dead or alive? Chapter 1826. Actually, if it was a normal day, Xiaohua could wave his hand and deny it, treating it as a joke. He was just mocking that fellow, but he didn't expect him to pick up the bait. Now it made things difficult for him. What a joke. Who would have the patience to fight with an energy training cultivator to kill a foundation establishment late-stage cultivator? Xiaohua wasn't even interested in a foundation establishment initial stage cultivator. However, Gantian late golden core stage cultivator was present, so Xiaohua couldn't go back on his words. Hearing Yan Xiefeng agree, Xiaohua could only smile bitterly. Great. Gantian smiled. When I was young, I was also this impulsive. Sigh, it's good to be young. Looking at the situation, Qian Diheng's unafraid attitude came from Gantian. However, Yan Xiefeng saw that Gantian was happy, so he gathered his courage and said, Since it's a competition, then Junior also has a condition. Tell me, let me hear it. Seeing such an interesting matter, Gantian was interested and asked, I heard that senior brother Xiao obtained a divine item from the Feather Immortal Gathering. Junior was thinking, can I use that item as a wager? If Junior is lucky enough to win, can senior brother Xiao part with it? Yan Xiefeng seemed to have thought about this countless times, saying it without hesitation. Even Zhen Weisheng was stunned. Interesting. Gantian seemed to have heard of the Great Wisdom Sword, turning his head and asking, Xiaohua, I heard that the item is extremely heavy, why didn't I see it in the storage bag? Xiaohua looked at the fanaticism in Yan Xiefeng's eyes and laughed coldly in his heart. A peak energy training cultivator actually dared to think about the Great Wisdom Sword. He was tired of living. Alright, I'll let Senior Master Qian know. That thing is too heavy and useless, so I threw it in the East Ridge Herb Garden. Xiaohua smiled. However, that item is an item from the heavens. Someone wants me to use it as a wager, then shouldn't that person also take out something similar? Junior has a magical item that I obtained from the Feather Immortal Gathering, and I'm willing to use it as a wager. Yan Xiefeng clapped his hands and took out a rectangular magical item that shone with a faint light. With a pft sound, Qian Diheng burst out laughing. With a face full of disdain and contempt he said, Martial nephew Yan really knows how to joke. He actually used a magic tool to make a bet with junior martial brother Xiao. How could that thing be as valuable as an extraterrestrial divine object? Back then, even the elders of the Tai Ching sect were full of praise for the otherworldly divine item. This Yan Xiefeng was at a loss for words. He'd only heard his senior brothers mention Xiaohua's Great Wisdom Sword. Yet he truly didn't have any impression of what it looked like or what it could be used for. However, according to his thoughts, the magic tool he obtained from the Feather Immortal Gathering should be able to compare with the Great Wisdom Sword. Right? If Swallow Thunder Ridge doesn't have anything good, why don't you let me take one and give it to martial nephew Yan? Qian Diheng was overjoyed and continued to tease. Hunger, Gantian scolded. How can you say that about Swallow Thunder Ridge? That's where Thunderclap Palace refines their weapons. Although he was scolding, his tone was filled with doting love, and he didn't try to hide it at all. Furthermore, he turned his head and said to Zhen Jie, Hunger's words are rough but logical. Junior martial brother Zhen, For something that even the elders of the Tai Ching sect said was good, if your Swallow Thunder Ridge doesn't take out anything, they won't be convinced. This tone, it was standard to stir things up, standard to not be afraid of things getting out of hand. This Zhen Jie hesitated. It was Zhen Weisheng's idea to have Yan Xiefeng test Xiaohua, and he would have approved of it. After all, Swallow Thunder Ridge's disciples had disappeared one after another because of Xiaohua. Even if Xiaohua was an aura-refining disciple, they still had to check his actual strength. However, the situation had already gotten out of his control, and it made him scratch his head. You have to take out a magic tool, right? Even if it's a low-grade one, Gantian suggested. There's no need for any magic tool, Xiaohua hurriedly said. Junior already has a hard time using the cloud-suppressing seal. Why don't we change to something else? Hearing this, Zhen Jie's anger rose. He had never met a cultivator who didn't like having too many magic tools. He stared at Xiaohua and laughed coldly. You haven't even reached foundation establishment and you already know how to be picky? I don't dare. Xiaohua lowered his brow and didn't retort. He knew that Gantian would definitely side with him, not for other reasons but because the more fun things were, the more Gantian would support him. That's true. Gantian smiled. Xiaohua got a magic tool last time in the Feather Celestial Gathering, so what's the point of giving him another one? He can't use it. Then I will take Zhen Jie's face turned green from being mocked. He slapped his storage bag and wanted to take out something but Zhen Weisheng stepped up and smiled. Master, did you forget? Last time you went out and got something good from the Xianin illusionary realm, and placed it with me. Isn't this thing the same value as the item from beyond the heavens? As he spoke, he took out a palm-sized jade pendant from his storage pouch and handed it over. And isn't this for you to comprehend? What did you see? Zhen Jie was stunned and then scolded. How can you take this thing out? Seeing his master continue the conversation, Zhen Weisheng panicked. Disciple is stupid. This thing is an ancient fire-controlling technique. With disciple's talent, it is hard to comprehend. Zhen Jie took the jade amulet and scanned it with his divine sense. A smile appeared on his face as he said to Xiaohua, "This is an ancient divine artifact. It is a perfect match for your divine artifact. If you don't agree, this old man has nothing else to take out." Xiaohua saw the two of them acting and knew that there was something fishy about this thing. He immediately waved his hand. Then forget it. Senior Master Zhen, I was joking about going to the lightning field. It's fine if I don't go. When Zhen Jie heard that, he smiled. Why do I listen to what you say? You said you wanted something of similar value, so I found something of similar value. If you don't want to go to the lightning field, then I won't let my disciple go there. Although Senior Brother Qian is here, I want you to make things clear. Damn it. Xiaohua was about to jump up and down. Who knows what is written on the jade? Do you think it is ancient just because you say so? What use do I have for an ancient thing? However, the ancient god item was compatible with his item from beyond the heavens. Anyone who heard it would think that it was of similar value. Let me take a look. Gantian stretched out his hand. Senior Brother Qian, please take a look and see if it is an ancient fire-controlling technique. Although it wasn't suitable to show it to Gantian now, Gantian wanted to see it. Zhen Jie didn't dare to go against him and passed it over. As expected, when Gantian scanned with his spiritual sense, he frowned. However, he smiled inside. Junior Brother Zhen is right. This is an ancient god item. Xiaohua, you can't go back on your words. Chapter 1827. It can't be. Xiaohua was somewhat anxious, but he turned his eyes and slightly tilted his head. Sure enough, Qian Diheng, who was not far away, was giving him a slight wink. Thus Xiaohua's heart moved, and he could only helplessly say, "All right, since Grandmaster Qian has said so, how could this junior dare not agree?" Ha ha, great. Gantian rubbed his palms and stood up. He didn't return the jade to Zhen Jie and said, "I haven't been to Lightning Field in a long time. Let's go and have some fun. I'll help you all make a decision." Today? Helplessly he frowned. The main character today was Cui Hongshan. It was his opening day. Who knew that all the glory would turn to Xiaohua? Now that he was going to enter Lightning Field, This wasn't a good sign for Cui Hongshan's opening. Only looking at Gantian's excited look, how would helplessly dare to say anything? He could only turn around and smile bitterly at Zhuo Minghui. Her expression was the same. Junior will go and get that item. Xiaohua cupped his hands and said. And I'll go with you. Xiang Yang smiled. Don't, I will go. Qian Diheng interrupted. If you all run, what will happen to my great-grandfather? You? Zhen Weisheng was about to smile crookedly. Xiang Yang definitely wouldn't let Xiaohua run. However, if Qian Diheng followed, the chances of Xiaohua running would be much higher. And you go with Xiaohua. Come back quickly. I'll wait for you all at Lightning Field. Gantian waved his hands. Disciple. Disciple also wants to go. Sun Shu and Shueshue said at the same time. Sun Ming looked at Gantian. Gantian waved his hands and smiled. It's good that two people go to Xuanlei Palace. Yes, two crisp voices like that of Orioles rang out. Not to mention Zhen Weisheng teaching Yan Xiefeng secrets, and finding a way to win. Not to mention Zhen Jie and Sun Ming accompanying Gantian to Lightning Field. Qian Diheng accompanying Xiaohua out of the cave. He immediately grabbed Xiaohua and asked in disbelief. Junior brother Xiaoyu, you really didn't use Zhongyao milk? Of course I didn't. Xiaohua shook his head. Sai, then it's all my fault. Qian Diheng said dejectedly. I delayed using it for a long time because I was afraid that he would ask about it. Who would have thought that you haven't used it after so long? I feel the same. Sun Shu bit his lips, which were somewhat pale. I didn't tell you the truth until junior sister Shue's escape technique suddenly improved. Master. Only noticed it. Haha, it's nothing. Xiaohua waved his hand. It has nothing to do with you. It's all my fault. I was too worried about personal gains and losses. Alas, Qian Diheng sighed again. He clapped his hand and took out an item from his storage pouch, handing it to Xiaohua. He said, This is from your grandfather. I thought you wouldn't need it. This Xiaohua looked at it, and a strange expression appeared on his face. Hehe, how is it? Who would have thought that it would really become yours? Qian Diheng seemed to have thought of something, and a trace of craftiness appeared on his face. Shueshue didn't ask much, and also took out an item, and handed it to Xiaohua. This is also Ai's choice. Sun Shu also smiled bitterly and said, However, if junior brother Xiao didn't speak up today, I'm afraid my master would have returned empty-handed. I believe that in a few days, my master will give you a great reward. Hehe, then let's make the reward even greater. Xiaohua received the two items with a smile. After Xiaohua put away the two items, he said, Little brother didn't do it entirely for martial ancestor Sun Ming. The majority of it was for my own sake. And I understand this. Sun Shu glanced at Shueshue and said in a low voice, You only have one drop left. You gave half a drop to ancestor Qian, but without my master's share, I'm afraid junior sister Shui will be wronged. Moreover, this half drop is also a disaster. If you don't give it all to others, no one will come to find trouble with you. Haha, exactly. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, In the future, I will have peace of mind. No one will come to find me, because of this. Sun Shu and Qian Diheng's faces were slightly bitter. Wasn't this all because of them? Of course, after Xiaohua told them what happened, if Sun Ming and Gantian didn't come, they wouldn't know how Xinjie would deal with them. Only then did the guilt of the two slightly ease. That's right, the thing that Zhen Weisheng gave Xinjie is obviously something that Xinjie doesn't know. How did it become some ancient god technique? If it's nothing, wouldn't Xiaohua be at a disadvantage? Shueshue's eyes turned slightly, changing the topic. Hehe, don't worry, junior sister Shui. Qian Diheng patted his chest and said, Since great-grandfather nodded his head and agreed, your item can't be wrong. Moreover, although Xinjie doesn't know what it is, he is a golden core cultivator. If he says it is, then it is. Great-grandfather can only agree. Oh, that's good. Shueshue smiled sweetly at Xiaohua. Ancient fire control god technique. This Zhen Weisheng really knows how to make things up. Qian Diheng curled his lips. If it's true, he would have comprehended it long ago. Why would he take it out? Moreover, even Xinjie doesn't know. But why did great-grandfather agree? Junior brother Qian. Don't forget that Ancestor Qian didn't let go once he took it. It seems, it really is a good item. Sun Shu noticed the details. And, I understand great-grandfather's words. My question is, what is in this jade? Qian Diheng scratched his head. Won't it be fine after Xiaohua wins against that guy? What's the use of thinking about it now? Sun Shu said in annoyance. Xue Xue was a little worried and said in a low voice. Xiaohua, are you confident? Him. Qian Diheng curled his lips again. This Xiaohua is the #1 expert under Foundation establishment in the Imperial Thunder sect. Oh, he should be the #1 expert under Foundation establishment in the Xiaoyu continent. If he can't do it, no one can. Sun Shu also nodded his head. Thinking back to that year, junior brother Xiao killed 4 Qi refining stage 12 cultivators by himself. That prestige. TSK, even I feel satisfied when I think about it. Yan Xiefeng of Swallow Thunder Ridge was like an egg striking a rock. Junior brother Xiao, do you think you should use the flying sword talisman to assassinate that guy, or use the cloud suppressing seal to smash that guy to death? Or use that black thing of yours to smash that guy into meat paste? Qian Diheng was planning a way for Yan Xiefeng to die. And I know what to do. Xiaohua didn't express his opinion. His gaze was calm as if he was considering something. Qian Diheng was overjoyed when he saw the situation. He knew that there would be an exciting battle to watch. Along the way, he talked a lot and taught Xiaohua how to kill Yan Xiefeng. Like Gantian, he wasn't afraid of things getting out of hand. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The Thunder Arena was a special place in the Imperial Thunder sect. Even the low-level disciples didn't know where it was. Within every lightning palace, there was a place where one could teleport to the Thunder Arena. This teleportation place was called the Life and Death Temple by the disciples. The disciples who entered the Thunder Arena had to be accompanied by their elders. The most important thing was that every disciple had to have a life and death contract. Without the contract, the Life and Death Temple wouldn't open. Chapter 1828. Seismic Thunder Palace's Life and Death Temple was in a side hall, guarded by disciples on duty. The disciples on duty didn't recognize Sun Shu and the others, but they recognized Zhenjie, Zhen Weisheng, and Helplessness. Seeing Zhenjie come with Gantian, they knew he was a teacher. One of them bowed and asked respectfully, Ancestor Zhen, why did you come to the Life and Death Temple? I have a disciple who wants to enter the Life and Death Temple. Go and call the deacon on duty today, Zhenjie said solemnly. Please wait a moment. Disciple will go and find Uncle Zhen Hongwen. The disciple was very smart, smiling and leaving. Not long later, Zhen Hongwen came. He was a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. Seeing that the person in front was Gantian from Qian Thunder Palace, he quickly walked over and bowed. Forget it. Gantian flicked his sleeves. I'm here to make a decision, no need to be so polite. Uncle Qian is going to make a decision? Zhen Hongwen was stunned. Looking at Zhenjie and Sun Ming, he muttered in his heart. It can't be these two seniors, right? However, he didn't say much, at the same time greeting Sun Ming and Zhenjie. After the greetings, Zhen Hongwen looked at Helplessness and Zhen Weisheng, thinking maliciously, could it be these two? But even so, there's no need for Uncle Qian to make a decision, right? Senior brother Zhen. Zhen Weisheng cupped his hands. I have a disciple who wants to enter the Thunder Arena with a disciple of senior brother Helplessness. Senior brother Zhen, please make some preparations. What? Your disciple? Zhen Hongwen was confused. Zhen Weisheng was only at the middle stage of Foundation establishment. His disciple was at most Qi refinement. A competition between Qi refinement disciples. Did a late-stage Golden Core cultivator need to participate? Helplessness's disciple Zhen Hongwen was still thinking. Xiangyang definitely isn't. Could it be at this moment? Gantian laughed coldly. Why is your Seismic Thunder Palace's Life and Death Temple so slow? Making preparations so slow? Yes, disciple will deal with it now. Zhen Hongwen's expression froze, and he immediately replied. After speaking, he patted his hand and took out a triangular jade plate from his storage bag. He pressed his hand on one of the corners and a finger-shaped imprint appeared on it. Red and blue light emitted from the edge of the imprint and slowly spread towards the other two corners. When one of the two corners turned pure red and the other pure blue, Zhen Hongwen said in a low voice, "Which two disciples want to enter the Thunder Arena? Please take out your identity medallion and imprint your imprint on this life and death contract." "Yes." Yan Xiefeng responded and stepped forward. He took out his identity token and activated it with his Fa Li. A misty brilliance appeared on the token and went into one of the pure red horns. Where the brilliance fell, it was like a stone falling into water, creating a layer of ripples. When the brilliance calmed down, 3 black words appeared on the pure red horn. It was Yan Xiefeng. "Where's the other disciple?" Zhen Hongwen raised her eyes and asked again, but her gaze was fixed on the several aura-refining disciples next to Cui Hongshan. "Junior brother Zhen, I's disciple isn't here yet," Helplessness quickly said. Although Helplessness was the senior brother, Zhen Hongwen was the deacon of the Life and Death Temple. His position was much higher than Helplessness's. His face was obviously cold. "Since he isn't here, why did you ask I to come? Also, why did you ask Senior Uncle Qian to come too?" His tone wasn't polite at all. "Humph, this little fellow is really long-winded." Gantian coldly snorted and said, "I haven't been impatient, but you're the first to be impatient. You can just wait here." "Yes, disciple understands." Zhen Hongwen's heart tightened. He definitely didn't expect Gantian to speak for Helplessness. He hurriedly bowed and replied. Thus, the group of people stood in front of the Life and Death Temple quietly. No one dared to speak. Not long later, another 5 cultivators came over. They were all at the Foundation Establishment realm. The 2 at the front were at the Foundation Establishment realm. Their faces were also ugly. They probably wanted to enter the Thunder Arena to settle their grievances. "Who's on duty?" One of the thin cultivators looked weak, but his temper was explosive. Before he even got close, he scolded. "Junior is on duty. Does Senior want to enter the Life and Death Temple?" The disciple who welcomed them immediately walked up. "Nonsense, if I'm not entering the Life and Death Temple, why am I here?" "Junior brother, I am here." Zhen Hongwen hurriedly walked past them and cupped his hands. "And I Su Ming greets Senior brother." That cultivator was obviously unhappy and wasn't too respectful. He slightly bowed. "I want to enter the Thunder Arena with this fellow. Senior brother, please handle it." This Zhen Hongwen was a little hesitant. Gantian was standing in front of the Life and Death Temple, and was blocked by several people. He wanted to enter the Thunder Arena to rule others. Should he enter first? "What's wrong? The person in front hasn't died yet?" Su Ming asked him politely. Zhen Hongwen seemed to understand the feelings of the cultivators who came to the Thunder Arena. He wasn't angry and smiled. "That's right. Junior brother Su, I'm afraid you'll have to wait for a while." "Humph," Su Ming glanced at the cultivator on the left and laughed coldly. "Then let this fellow live a little longer. We still don't know who will live and who will die." That cultivator didn't seem to be afraid and retorted. The 3 people behind were obviously the teachers of the 2 and knew each other. Their faces were filled with worry. Seeing that there were people in front of them, they exchanged glances and walked in front of the 2, whispering something. However, it was obvious that Su Ming was impatient. His face was filled with respect and he seemed to listen to everything they said. However, his eyes occasionally glanced at the other party and flashed with a vicious light. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, there was still no movement in front. Su Ming couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "Senior brother Zhen? The people in front. Why are they dying so slowly? Why aren't you moving aside?" "Humph," a sound rang out and Su Ming's brain exploded. It was as if an awl had pierced into it. "Io!" Su Ming cried out and fell to the ground. "Where are you from? Don't you know first come, first served? Why aren't you being respectful in front of us seniors?" It was actually Zhenjie's voice. "Since you want to die, I'll let you die now so that the seniors of the Heavenly Thunder Palace don't have to watch the show." Zhenjie. Martial Uncle Zhen? Only now did Su Ming's teacher see Zhenjie in front of the crowd, followed by Sun Ming and Gantian. The 3 of them were shocked and wanted to bow and greet in a panic. "You wait first." How could Zhenjie let them go forward? He flicked his sleeves and said, "Wait until I'm done with senior brother Qian, then it'll be your turn." "Yes, yes." Su Ming's teacher hurriedly nodded, and then helped Su Ming up. Su Ming's face was pale, and his eyes were filled with fear. This golden core stage cultivator's ability was really strange. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, with the persuasion of teacher Su Ming's expression actually eased up. The two opponents who had previously been ready to fight to the death on the thunder field, under the escort of the teachers from both sides, cupped their hands towards Zhen Hongwen and turned to leave the side hall. However, when they left, they didn't dare to say goodbye to Zhen Jie. Chapter 1829. The five of them left the side hall, and didn't walk far when they met two men and two women. One of them was a tall and thin aura refining disciple holding an extremely ugly sword embryo. He asked very respectfully, "Martial uncle, may I know how to enter the view of life and death of my thunderous palace?" Needless to say, this aura refining disciple was Xiao Hua. This guy also just found out that entering the thunder field required passing the view of life and death, and he didn't know about the thunderous palace's view of life and death. "Yes, it's just ahead." Su Ming's master pointed and then advised, "There is a Jindan martial uncle in front of the view of life and death. If you want to enter the thunder field, come back later." "Yes, thank you, martial uncle." Xiao Hua cupped his hands and led Qian Diheng and the others in the direction of the view of life and death. Alas, why are the disciples nowadays all the same as Su Ming? Su Ming's master sighed. "You can't even listen to the words of your elders. It's obviously not a big matter, but you have to make a big fuss. If it weren't for the delay in front of the view of life and death today, you two who were originally on good terms with each other would be separated by life and death." "Master, can't you say a few words less?" "Ouch." Su Ming held his head and whispered in shame and anger, "We were just talking about others. Why are you talking about disciples again?" Immediately, Su Ming came to his senses and turned to look at the backs of Xiao Hua and the others. They shouldn't be the disciples that martial uncle Zhenjie is waiting for. No, two aura refining disciples, two disciples who just entered the Foundation establishment realm. How could they be worthy of waiting for Heavenly Thunder Palace's Jindan cultivators? Another cultivator said resolutely. "Why not?" Su Ming asked again, obviously unconvinced. "What?" Still, that person also asked back, but before he could speak, Su Ming's master quickly pulled the two people and said, "Who cares who they are waiting for? Let's go first." Xiao Hua and the other three had just entered the side chamber when they were greeted by Xiang Yang, who had been waiting for them. Xiang Yang's first words were, "Junior brother, the Thunder Arena is not that easy to enter and exit. You should carefully consider it. Just now, I saw with my own eyes that the two senior and junior brothers who were originally going to enter the Thunder Arena, after a period of delay, have both calmed down and now have returned looking at this elder martial brother, who always tried to be nice," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Now that things have come to this, can this little brother withdraw?" "Exactly." Qian Diheng didn't like Xiang Yang and said snappily, "Wait until junior brother Xiao kills that guy. Then it won't be too late for you to say this." Xiang Yang sighed and brought Xiao Hua to Zhenjie and the others. "This is the item from beyond the heavens?" When Gantian saw the great wisdom sword in Xiao Hua's hand, he was stunned. Xiao Hua handed Hanya over with a smile and said, "It's this thing. However, other than the fact that it's especially heavy, it's just that it's not controlled by divine sense. There's nothing special about it." And Gantian swept with his spiritual sense, and as Xiao Hua said, he reached out to take it. "Grandmaster Qian, this thing is really heavy," Xiao Hua reminded. Gantian glanced at Xiao Hua. If it was someone else, he would have scolded them. Xiao Hua didn't dare to say anything more, and released his hand. Unexpectedly, Gantian casually picked up the great wisdom sword, and even waved it around in his hands. His face didn't reveal any weird expression as he nodded his head. As expected, it is heavy. However, to say that it's an item from beyond the heavens is a little too mysterious. It's just like that ancient god technique. It complements each other. When Zhenjie heard those words that were obviously mocking him, he acted like he didn't hear anything. Gantian looked at Zhenjie and said, This thing obviously has nothing to do with spells. Even if Xiaohua got it, he would just throw it to the side. Junior brother Zhen decided to use the jade to bet with this thing? Zhenjie didn't hesitate and smiled. I have stood with senior brother Qian for so long. How can I not count? Wouldn't that be letting senior brother see my shocking Thunder Palace as a joke? Okay. Gantian smiled. I am just a judge, giving you guys a reminder before entering the Life and Death Temple. Then he said to Xiaohua, Go, I will take this thing first. If you can't come down from the lightning field, I will pass it to junior brother Zhen. Yes, disciple understands. Xiaohua bowed and turned around to look at the cultivator guarding the Life and Death Temple. Zhen Hongwen walked over and took out the triangle and asked, Are you Wu Hai's disciple? Junior is Wu Hai's disciple Xiaohua. Xiaohua replied. Do you want to sign a life and death contract with Yan Xiefeng to enter the Life and Death Temple and enter the lightning field? That's right. Okay, take out your identity token and sign on this life and death contract. Zhen Hongwen said expressionlessly. Xiaohua pondered for a moment and immediately understood the spell. He took out his identity token from his storage bag. The spell was the same as Yan Xiefeng's. A misty light flashed from the token and landed on the life and death contract. However, when the red and blue light surged, it spread to the last corner of the contract until it was completely blue. 2 black words, Xiaohua's, appeared there. The masters of the 2 disciples, please come over. Zhen Hongwen raised her head again. Wu Hai and Zhen Weisheng had already come forward. They each took out their tokens and signed their names in the middle of the life and death contract where Yan Xiefeng and Xiaohua's names were respectively. 3 martial uncles, please wait. Zhen Hongwen walked to the front of the Life and Death Temple. It was originally a very ordinary projector wall. Zhen Hongwen walked to the front of the projector wall and took out a diamond-shaped token. She cast a spell on the token, and the token immediately emitted an emerald green light beam. After the light beam reached the air, it gradually condensed into the shape of a ball. Zhen Hongwen snorted and changed the spell in her hand again. She slowly pushed the ball toward the projector wall. When the ball entered the projector wall began to slowly vibrate like a chicken being split open. From the middle, a crisscrossing gap appeared. Go. Zhen Hongwen didn't dare to be negligent. She threw the token in her hand into the gap, and it turned into an emerald green light and disappeared. After the light disappeared, the gap gradually split open. It revealed a flat surface that was as smooth as a bronze mirror. This is the Life and Death Temple? Xiaohua looked at it without blinking and said in his heart. The surface of the mirror was oval, and there were many runes engraved on the surrounding frame. These runes were also emerald green and faintly flowed in the brilliance. Even in the mirror, there was no reflection at all, only some runes were faintly discernible. Zhen Hongwen paused for a moment and threw the life and death contract in her hand into the mirror. With a schwa sound, like the surface of the water being lifted, a red and blue brilliance appeared from the place where the life and death contract fell. This brilliance was like a door, red on one side and blue on the other, slowly moving to both sides. Chapter 1830. When the mirror was divided into red and blue, Zhen Hongwen turned around and said, Yan Xiefeng, Xiaohua, the life and death view has been opened. You too can enter the thunder field according to the color shown by your names. I want to remind you that as long as you step into the life and death view, the life and death inside, you are not responsible. Do you want to go in? Thank you, martial uncle. We will go in. Xiaohua and Yan Xiefeng bowed. Zhen Hongwen didn't know how many times he had heard this reply. He casually nodded and waved his hand, retreating a few steps. Senior brother Xiao, please. Yan Xiefeng looked at the red and blue doors and raised his hand. Okay. Xiaohua didn't hold back. Looking at Yan Xiefeng, who was like a dead person, he stepped into the blue side. Xiaohua only felt his vision darken. Instantly, a kind of teleporting pressure came from all directions. However, in the blink of an eye, the pressure disappeared. When Xiaohua focused his eyes, he saw that he was inside a light barrier flickering with a light blue brilliance. And the countless lightning on the light barrier was the restriction outside the light barrier. Xiaohua released his spiritual sense and felt that the space inside the light barrier was extremely large. His spiritual sense couldn't reach the end. Space magic. Xiaohua immediately understood. Xiaohua, Yin Xiefeng, are you two ready? Zhen Hongwen's voice came again. Xiaohua raised his head and said, Disciple is ready. After 10 breaths, an illusion will appear in the thunder field. As for what illusion, I don't know. You can do whatever you want in this illusion. All magic tools and treasures won't be affected. Zhen Hongwen's voice was like the sound of nature. You two, either one dies, one admits defeat, or the other accepts. Otherwise, you can't leave the thunder field. Of course, Uncle Master Zhen, and the others all saw your fight. Now that Uncle Master Gantian is here to judge, he will definitely give you justice. Then Zhen Hongwen's voice disappeared. After 10 breaths, Xiaohua only felt that his eyes were bright. It was so bright that he couldn't help but close his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. In front of Xiaohua's eyes was a beautiful immortal world. Not to mention the extremely majestic immortal mountains in the distance. Not to mention the boundless surging Milky Way near the immortal mountains. Not to mention the heavenly maidens washing themselves and bathing by the Milky Way. Just the leisurely flying immortal birds and immortal beasts in front of Xiaohua made him feel as if there was too much for his eyes to take in. Damn it, is this really the original appearance of the immortal land? Xiaohua's gaze couldn't help but glance towards the bank of the heavenly river. Kacha, a crisp sound rang out. In the sky above the celestial realm, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared in the clouds of the 9th heaven. It rapidly struck towards Xiaohua's forehead. No way. I'm just looking, and I haven't even seen. Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. He was just about to use the bright thunder escape, but when he thought about how Zhenjie and the others were in the thunder arena and could see his every move, his figure unconsciously became sluggish. At this time, if he took out a flight talisman, it would probably be too late. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He clapped his hands and the cloud-suppressing seal flew out. However, just as the cloud-suppressing seal flew into the air, before Xiaohua could activate his spiritual power, that bolt of lightning had already struck Xiaohua's head. Xiaohua sighed in his heart and hurriedly dodged. A loud sound rang out as the lightning struck his shoulder. Just as Xiaohua was about to be injured, a tricolored brilliance flashed from the spot where the lightning struck, blocking the lightning out of thin air. The lightning immediately disappeared into thin air. Xiaohua was very familiar with this tricolored brilliance. It was the defensive magic treasure that Qian Diheng wore during his experiential learning. That's right, this protective treasure was chosen by Qian Diheng for Xiaohua. It was the treasure that he had always used to protect his life. At this moment, Xiaohua was wearing this treasure. No wonder Qian Diheng had been plotting how Yin Xiefeng would die. Outside the illusory realm, Zhenjie's face was so gloomy that water could be squeezed out of it. He snuck a glance at Qian Tian and said intentionally or unintentionally, Senior Brother Qian? This treasure, seems to be what Senior Brother used when he was young. Isn't that right? I was wondering why it looks so familiar. This little brat, I only said that I would give a treasure to Xiaohua, and he actually took it out. What a prodigal thing. Qian Tian scolded. However, he immediately asked. However, this treasure of Yin Xiefeng seems to be what Junior Brother used in the past. Hee, I had already given this treasure to my disciple. I'm afraid that Weixing gave it to Xiefeng. Zhenjie said embarrassedly. Sai just a chi refining disciple, and he has to use a treasure. It's not good for the meridians. Qian Tian said sincerely. Zhenjie's lungs were about to explode from anger. He naturally knew that this was his disciple's arrangement. Moreover, Zhen Weixing also knew that Xiaohua had the cloud-suppressing seal. However, none of them expected that Qian Diheng would give Xiaohua a protective treasure. Although protective treasures also needed magic power, they used less magic power than attacking treasures. With this treasure, Xiaohua was at least in an undefeatable position. Zhenjie wanted to say something, but before entering the Thunder Arena, Zhenjie had already given this protective magic weapon to Xiaohua. Xiaohua had taken advantage of the time when he went to the Eastern Ridge to retrieve the Great Wisdom Sword to refine it for himself. What could he say? Damn it, no wonder Qian Diheng wanted to follow. Zhen Jie couldn't help but scold. And within the illusion, Xiao Hua, who was struck by a bolt of lightning, quickly fell down several feet. Only then did he stabilize himself. When he raised his head, Yan Xiefeng's figure appeared high up in the sky. Humph, Xiao Hua sneered. He slapped his hand and took out a flying talisman from the space. He slapped it on his body, and then urged his magic power to fly high up in the sky. Moreover, while flying, he held the cloud-suppressing seal in his hand. When the two people approached, Yan Xiefeng's hand had already changed into a gourd-shaped magic treasure. Looking at Xiao Hua's figure flying over, his face was abnormally heavy. Needless to say, his sneak attack just now was precisely because of Zhen Weisheng's instructions. Relying on some of his experience with the Thunder Plains illusory realm, he hid in the shadows and then used his sect's secret technique to activate his magic weapon, wanting to give Xiao Hua a fatal blow. But in the end, Yan Xiefeng consumed a lot of magic power. For a short period of time, he temporarily couldn't control his magic treasure. He could only use his magic treasure, the Thunder Spirit Gourd, to fight the enemy. As for the Thunder Spirit Gourd, it definitely couldn't break Xiao Hua's protective treasure. But what else could he do? If he didn't want to sit and wait for death, he could only compete with Xiao Hua's magic power, and see whose magic power would be consumed first. This was obviously the sorrow of an aura-refining disciple, and it was also something he could think of in advance. But what about Xiao Hua? Xiao Hua didn't know about his challenge. Thinking of this, Yan Xiefeng's mouth hung a cold smile. Chapter 1831. Therefore, when Yan Xiefeng flew down, he had already taken a pill to recover his true energy, and quietly waited for his spiritual power to recover. Thinking of this, the corner of Yan Xiefeng's mouth slightly rose. Yes, for this battle, Zhen Weisheng gave him a lot of pills. Even though Xiao Hua went to the Eastern Ridge, after all, he wasn't with Zhang Wuji. In terms of pills, he definitely couldn't compare to Yan Xiefeng. Xiao Hua and the others approached. With a wave of his hand, the cloud-suppressing seal let out a wung-wung sound. In midair, it absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and gradually enlarged. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth around the cloud-suppressing seal also began to condense into a tiny ribbon shape. Go! Xiao Hua's face gradually turned pale, seemingly due to the consumption of his spiritual power. Seeing the cloud-suppressing seal slowly pressing down on him, Yan Xiefeng couldn't help but feel a burst of palpitations in his heart. That kind of feeling seemed to be an invisible rope firmly binding him. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't break free. Yan Xiefeng's forehead was instantly covered in sweat. This was the first time he encountered this kind of situation. Pooh! Yan Xiefeng suddenly bit the tip of his tongue. A stream of blood essence spurted out, startling him for a moment. Quick! Taking advantage of this precious moment, Yan Xiefeng already formed a seal on the Thunder Spirit Gourd in his hand. From within the gourd, a purple brilliance sprayed out. Within the brilliance, there were dozens of flashing lightning bolts. They were like exquisite little dragons that danced and rushed towards the cloud-suppressing seal. As the lightning bolts danced, the purple brilliance converged into the lightning bolts. Those lightning bolts absorbed the abundant lightning energy of the Thunder Arena and rapidly expanded. When they flew close to the cloud-suppressing seal, they had already become lightning bolts as thick as an arm. Ka-cha-cha, ka-cha-cha, a dozen sounds in a row. Those lightning bolts hit the bottom of the cloud-suppressing seal, smashing some of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into tiny ribbons. However, these lightning bolts only slightly prevented the cloud-suppressing seal from falling. The remaining lightning bolts gradually shrank under the might of the cloud-suppressing seal, and were even annihilated. This is the difference between a magic treasure and a magic tool. Fall. Not far away, Xiao Hua's face showed joy. Urging the spiritual power in his hand, the cloud-suppressing seal sped up and smashed towards Yan Xiefeng's forehead. Go! Yan Xiefeng had long expected this. Taking advantage of the fact that the cloud-suppressing seal's infinite karma power was slightly weak, he tried his best to activate the flight talisman to escape. Unfortunately, how could a 12th layer Qi refinement cultivator like him escape from the boundless power of karma? Even if Yin Xiefeng exerted all his strength, he only managed to fly a few feet. Pa! The cloud-suppressing seal landed on Yin Xiefeng's forehead. However, just as Xiaohua had expected, a layer of lightning also appeared on Yin Xiefeng's forehead. This lightning quickly covered Yin Xiefeng's entire body and firmly protected him. No matter how much the suppressing cloud seal flipped in the air, it could not land. Hee, senior brother Zhen. You've made a lot of preparations. Sun Ming couldn't help but say in amusement. Both of them had magic treasures to protect themselves, so in the end, the only thing that mattered was their transcendence energy. Furthermore, they were both at the peak of the 12th layer of aura refining, so their transcendence energy, was there even a need to mention it? There was definitely not much difference between them. In Sun Ming's mind, the biggest possibility for these two people was already a tie. This old man also doesn't know. It's all thanks to Professor Wei Sheng's methods. Zhenjie naturally pushed away all responsibility. However, just as Sun Ming was speaking, a strange change occurred again. Xiaohua's hand spread out, and like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, dozens of fireball talismans covered Yin Xiefeng's entire body, only to hear a series of rumbling sounds, like the firecrackers of the mortal world during the new year, ringing non-stop. With great difficulty it finally stopped. At the place where the flames were extinguished, Yin Xiefeng revealed an expression of having a card up his sleeve, and the lightning around his body did not decrease in the slightest. However, just as Yin Xiefeng once again struggled free from the might of the cloud-suppressing seal, and had just flown a few feet away, Xiaohua once again waved his large hand, closely followed by a dozen or so fireball talismans pouncing over this. Sun Ming was somewhat speechless. This was almost a scoundrel's way of fighting. But thinking about it again, relying on the might of a magic weapon to trap the opponent, and then using yellow talismans to wear down the opponent's magic power, it was also an extremely normal train of thought. Others had just woken up, but Wu Qi, Zhuo Minghui, Xiang Yang, and the others had already thought of it when Xiaohua threw out the first batch of fireball talismans. Didn't Xiaohua use this move to deal with Xiang Yang that day? Even the early-stage foundation establishment Xiang Yang was somewhat exhausted. Could Yin Xiefeng do it? Of course, this depended on how long Yin Xiefeng's magic power could support the magic weapon protecting his body, and also how many fireball talismans Xiaohua had. But how many fireball talismans did Xiaohua have? No one seemed to know that every time Yin Xiefeng relied on this protective magic treasure to block the fireballs that came crashing down on his head and face, and then barely managed to move a few feet, Xiaohua would immediately wave his hand in an extremely confident manner, and another dozen or even dozens of fireball talismans would surround Yin Xiefeng. This cycle repeated over and over again until everyone was tired of watching, but Xiaohua's movements were still as joyful as ever. Obviously, this most basic attack method, the most clumsy fireball talisman, was the most effective way to consume magic power. Every time, the light protecting Yin Xiefeng's body would admittedly decrease by a small amount, but it was still decreasing. Moreover, following the consumption of his magic power, the light would decrease even more. After a long time, the lightning finally weakened, just when Sun Shu and the others were extremely puzzled, but sometimes they were somewhat happy. The cloud-suppressing seal that Xiaohua relied on to suppress Yin Xiefeng's movements suddenly lost its sound, and silently fell from the air. Obviously, it was because Xiaohua's magic power was insufficient. Oh no! Xiang Yang was the first to cry out in alarm. Junior Martial Brother Zhao's true qi is exhausted. Right now, Xiaohua's cultivation was at the 12th layer of qi refining, not much different from Yin Xiefeng. Yin Xiefeng only used his magic power to defend himself, so the consumption was naturally smaller. How could Xiaohua last? The cloud-suppressing seal falling at this time was already very rare and commendable. However, Xiaohua didn't seem to be flustered at all. At the same time, he withdrew the cloud-suppressing seal with one hand, and at the same time, threw out a fireball talisman with the other hand, and then took out a few medicinal pills to consume. Rumble. A series of loud sounds rang out, but Yin Xiefeng's heart was already at ease inside the fireball. Just now, the cloud-suppressing seal above his head made him unable to retaliate at all. He had persevered for a long time just for this moment. I want to see how long your magic power can last. An evil grin gradually appeared on Yan Xiefeng's face. Half of the true qi in his meridians was activated. While maintaining the protective magic treasure, he had already accumulated enough strength to activate his magic power. Once the fireball was about to explode, he would rush out and give Xiaohua a head-on blow. Seeing that the surrounding fire was decreasing, Yan Xiefeng let out a long whistle, and his figure suddenly flew up. With a wave of his hand, the thunder spirit gourd that was not suppressed by the cloud-suppressing seal until now flew up, and the gourd's mouth once again burst out with a purple brilliance. However, just when Yan Xiefeng was about to cast a spell on the thunder spirit gourd, he suddenly felt a black shadow streaking across his eyes. In the blink of an eye, the shadow had already flown to a distance of about 1 zhang in front of him. "Oh, this guy is really so fast." Yan Xiefeng's heart was slightly startled and he secretly pondered. As expected by Master, he is really faster than me by 30%. He's so close, could it be that he still has some trump card? Without waiting for Yan Xiefeng to finish thinking, he saw Xiaohua wave his hand, and a pitch-black spear point appeared in his hand. Xiaohua's face suddenly turned blood red, and his figure sped up again. With a hoo sound, the spear point quickly pierced Yan Xiefeng's body defense. Demonic weapon. Yan Xiefeng's eyes narrowed. No wonder Master said that Xiaohua's strength is huge, and that he might have some trump card. Using his outer space object as a stake, one can try to increase his cultivation, and two can weaken his strength. It really is useful. I'm afraid this demonic weapon is his final trump card. With a paw sound, a huge force hit Yan Xiefeng's chest. Although Yan Xiefeng's figure retreated a lot, the light protecting his body flickered, and his body didn't suffer any damage. Ha ha ha. Yan Xiefeng, who thought he already figured out Xiaohua's details, laughed wildly a few times, and said sternly, "You think only you have fireball talismans?" While speaking, he waved his hand, and the same large amount of fireball talismans sprinkled out. Although the quality was far inferior to Xiaohua's fireball talismans, the exploding fireballs also blocked Xiaohua inside. Xiaohua's magic power seemed to be insufficient, and when he was flying just now, he also seemed to have urged a secret technique. At this time, his figure was somewhat clumsy, and he actually couldn't dodge. One fireball after another exploded near his body. Of course, the light protecting his body overflowed and easily blocked these fireballs. Quick, hearing Yan Xiefeng's incantation in his ears, he saw that inside the thunder spirit gourd, another 4 or 5 lightning bolts grew in the wind, and like small dragons, pounced towards Xiaohua. In a hurry, Xiaohua waved his hand, and the spirit crow fire net rushed into the sky. Under the urging of his magic power, more than 10 fire crows flew out from the fire net, and faced the lightning bolts with a whistle. Ka-cha-cha, several thunderous sounds rang out, and the lightning bolts and fire crows were annihilated at the same time. The power of these two artifacts was exactly the same. Fight! Xiaohua was already full of fighting experience. Early on, at the same time that he shot out the spirit crow fire net, his figure once again flew. Taking advantage of the fact that Yan Xiefeng hadn't taken out his yellow talisman, he once again flew to his side. With an angry roar, he swung the tip of the demonic spear in his hand, and like a little chick pecking at rice, he consecutively stabbed towards Yan Xiefeng's waist more than 10 times. With every stab, Yan Xiefeng would fly back a foot, and Xiaohua would follow like a shadow, sticking close to his body, and stab a second time. Admittedly, the demonic spear tip was unable to pierce through the defense, but the strength in Xiaohua's hand could not be faked. The defensive brilliance could not completely block it, and more than 10 strikes landed on Yan Xiefeng's body that had not been tempered in the slightest. It was already painful to the point that his face turned deathly pale, and at the same time that he was in pain, his magic power was already insufficient. The thunder spirit gourd stopped in the air, and no more lightning bolts flew out. Looking at Xiaohua again, he was incomparably refreshed. At the same time that he stabbed Yan Xiefeng, he didn't forget to point his finger. The spirit crow fire net covered the thunder spirit gourd, and that purple brilliance could no longer leak out. Chapter 1832. Yan Xiefeng endured the pain and clapped his hands again. A large amount of yellow talismans flew out, wanting to force Xiaohua to retreat. Who would have thought that Xiaohua's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness? He stretched out his left hand, grabbing Yan Xiefeng's neck as if he was catching a fish. Yan Xiefeng was shocked. He swung his hand upwards, wanting to block, but Xiaohua's arm seemed to be soft. It swayed in front of his eyes and easily dodged. Yan Xiefeng simply didn't have time to react. With a paw sound, Xiaohua grabbed Yan Xiefeng's neck. Naturally, Yan Xiefeng's protective light rippled and blocked Xiaohua's hand. But immediately after, Xiaohua's action made the onlookers dumbstruck. Xiaohua actually raised his fist and punched Yan Xiefeng's neck. At the same time, he used his other hand to stab Yan Xiefeng's waist with the tip of the demonic spear. What kind of fighting method is this? Even Gantian, an experienced and knowledgeable late Golden Core cultivator, was stunned. He really couldn't understand what was going on. Reporting to Senior Master Qian helplessly, his face was a little red. He said shyly, "Junior's disciple was originally a loose cultivator. His actions seemed to be similar to the martial techniques of the secular world." Martial techniques? Oh, I have some impression. Gantian came to a realization. It's similar to the body cultivators of the cultivation world, right? Maybe disciple isn't too sure. Helplessly shrunk his neck. He felt ashamed that Xiaohua actually used the tricks of the secular world. Yan Xiefeng was probably dizzy from Xiaohua's beating. He threw out large amounts of yellow talismans, but he didn't know where he threw them. He clearly felt that Xiaohua was on the left, but after he threw them out, Xiaohua ran to the right. When he hit the right again, Xiaohua appeared above him. In short, Xiaohua was like a cat playing with a mouse, doing whatever he wanted around Yan Xiefeng. Pa! A crisp sound rang out. This sound was extremely soft, but in Yan Xiefeng's ears, it was extremely ear-piercing. It was like a jade pillar suddenly collapsing. His heart instantly turned cold. This was the sound of Yan Xiefeng's protective magical treasure being broken. This is bad. Yan Xiefeng was so shocked that he decided to use the secret method taught by Professor Zhan Weixing regardless of anything else. However, just as he activated the secret technique, a powerful hand gripped his neck. The strength that was as hard as rock immediately made him feel suffocated. Yan Xiefeng had not experienced this feeling for a long time, but once this feeling appeared, he did not hesitate. Xiaohua only needed to move slightly, and his neck would be easily broken. Just like a weak little chick. "Senior brother Xiao, please spare my life." Fear came as expected, not allowing Yan Xiefeng the slightest hesitation. Humph. Zhen Jie's face instantly turned pale. He looked at Yan Xiefeng, who was struggling with all his strength but was unable to break free. He snorted coldly and turned to leave. "Junior brother Zhen?" Gantian's voice spread over. It was really cold but also really excited. "I haven't made my decision and junior brother is leaving? Are you not going to give senior brother face?" "Haha, not at all. I just want to ask Wei Sheng how he teaches his disciples." Zhen Jie smiled apologetically. "Their cultivation is the same, and their spiritual power is about the same. How could he be defeated by such shameless methods? This kind of disciple, if he dies, then he dies. Is there a need for senior brother Qian to make a decision?" Take a look. Xiaohua didn't kill him. Gantian's brows rose, indicating for Zhen Jie to return. Zhen Jie didn't dare to disobey. He looked at Sun Ming, who couldn't help but laugh. He was abnormally embarrassed and angry, but his body still resolutely turned back. At this moment, Xiaohua's voice spread over. "Zhen? Senior Uncle Zhen? Does it count as my win?" That voice was both timid and excited, like, this victory was not easy to come by. "Senior Uncle Qian, what do you think with Gantian here?" Zhen Hongwen naturally didn't dare to make a decision. "Damn, do you still need me to make a decision?" Gantian scolded with a smile. Xiaohua only needed to use strength and Yan Xiefeng's neck would be broken like a duck. No matter what, Xiaohua won. "Yes, disciple understands," Zhen Hongwen hurriedly said. Following which, Zhen Hongwen waved his hand, and a red light pillar appeared from the illusion. He said, "Xiaohua, you have already won. You just need to bring Yan Xiefeng into the light pillar." "Yes, disciple understands." Xiaohua was afraid of changes and didn't dare to be careless. He still carried Yan Xiefeng like he was carrying a real duck. He pointed his finger, and the spirit crow fire net brought the lightning spirit gourd back, stepping into the red light pillar. The light pillar flashed, and Xiaohua's figure disappeared from the illusion. The entire illusion returned to red and blue. Senior Uncle Qian, Senior Uncle Zhen, Senior Uncle Sun, please, Zhen Hongwen said with a smile. Xiaohua's eyes darkened. And there was another teleportation pressure. An oval door appeared in front of him. Xiaohua understood that this was the life and death situation from before. When Xiaohua stepped out of the door, as expected, Qian Diheng and the others were already waiting by the side. Putong Xiaohua shook his hand, throwing Yan Xiefeng to the ground. Yan Xiefeng seemed to have no strength left, unable to stand up. The others didn't dare to say anything. Qian Diheng had already walked up and looked at Yan Xiefeng, saying weirdly, Junior brother Xiao, this are you sure? He already went up the lightning field, and you still don't want his life. Why would I want junior brother Yan's life? Xiaohua was very calm, and he said righteously, Junior brother Yan wanted to spar with me, and he didn't even think about going up the lightning field. Moreover, we are all disciples of Thunder Palace, and we don't have any grudges. Why do we have to fight to the death? Then he looked at Gantian and smiled. Moreover, Senior Uncle Qian still has a bet, and I really can't bring myself to die. It can't be? Qian Diheng was stunned. When did you become so kind? I have always been kind. It's just that you didn't notice. Xiaohua said with a smile. Because of him, 3 of Zhenjia's personal disciples had already died in Thunder Ridge. If he killed Zhen Weisheng's disciple in front of him, would he still want to cultivate in Thunder-controlling sect? Wouldn't he attract the attention of Thunder Ridge? What if he attracted the attention of the Heavenly Thunder Palace or other teachers? Xiaohua couldn't be bothered to do such a thing that harms others without benefiting himself. Great! Gantian smiled, passing the Great Wisdom Sword and the jade to Xiaohua. I didn't expect that you would let Yan Xiefeng go. Not bad. Such a magnanimous cultivator with such methods, comparable to your senior brother. Ha ha ha, so what if he doesn't build his foundation? After saying those words that didn't know how to praise, Gantian didn't say anything more, turning around and leaving. Qian Diheng scratched his head, giving Xiaohua a look, and he hurriedly followed. Looking at the figures of the two leaving, their footsteps were exactly the same. Chapter 1833. Scoff. Once Gantian's body disappeared, Zhenjia scoffed coldly. His eyes circled Xiaohua's body, before looking at helplessness. Although his gaze was like a knife, he was helpless. He waved his sleeves and left. Zhen Weisheng naturally followed. Yan Xiefeng's face was ashen white as he followed behind. Ha ha ha, Sun Ming cupped his hands and said. Nephew helpless, what a good disciple you took in. Even senior brother Gantian praised him. Congratulations. Helpless' face turned red as he returned the greeting. I don't dare, I made Senior Master Sun laugh. These are all methods that can't be seen by others, it's an unfair win. An unfair win? A thoughtful smile appeared on Sun Shu's face, and he didn't say anything else. He nodded slightly at Xiaohua, then led Sun Shu and Xue Xue away. Xue Xue's gaze was filled with reluctance, but she still walked further and further away. Zhen Mo and the others also said a few words to Helpless and Zhuo Minghui before bringing their disciples away. Only the 10,000 Thunder Valley disciples were left in front of the Life and Death Temple. Xiaohua held the Great Wisdom Sword in one hand, and the jade he won in the other. He looked at Helpless and smiled. Master, I won. Junior brother Xiao is indeed amazing. You are as fierce as before. Xiangyang saw that Helpless' expression wasn't right and immediately said, even if I faced junior brother Xiao now, I would have my hands tied. Scoff. Helpless was originally gloomy. At this moment, he rolled his eyes, sweeping a glance at Xiangyang and then at Xiaohua. He sneered and said, I originally thought that my myriad Thunder Valley's first disciple would reach foundation establishment in 50 years. Who would have thought that the second disciple might take even longer? Master Xiaohua felt wronged and said softly. Helpless' gaze was filled with disappointment as he stared at Xiaohua. You said you won. Yes, you did win. However, don't you think that you won with an unfair win? Ah? Xiaohua was stunned and blurted out. What? Master, you actually saw through it? Hehe, not only me but Senior Master Zhen, Senior Master Sun, and Senior Master Qian. Which one of them didn't see through it? Didn't you hear what Senior Master Qian said? Such methods. So what if you are energy refinement? Do you know how I felt when I heard those words? You've made me lose all face. Looking helplessly at Xiaohua's enlightened face, he said angrily. You have cultivated for so many years. Have you cultivated your cultivation to become a dog? Don't you know how to use some magic? Didn't they know how to accumulate more magic power and use magic treasures? Even if the transcendent artifact is not good enough, can't you use more transcendent artifacts? The magic tool your mistress gave you. Are you planning to use it to give birth to a child? I spent a large sum of spirit stones to refine these magic tools for you. And you let them sleep? Could it be that these Dharma artifacts became Dharma treasures when they fell asleep? It's fine if you use the fireball talisman. After all, it's still a cultivator's technique. But, you actually used a magic weapon and relied on your strength to win. Those were the methods that cultivators disdained. They were the brainless methods of the people of the devil world. You actually have the nerve to use it. And, even if you use a demonic weapon, that's fine. It's still considered a demonic technique. You can just borrow it and treat it as a body cultivator. I won't say anything. You actually disregarded your status as a cultivator and used the methods of a mortal martial artist. What do you want me to say about you? I originally thought that you would learn from your mistakes, but looking at your fighting methods, which one of them didn't rely on external objects? With such insignificant methods, even if you won, so what? What's the use of that so-called jade amulet? Can you build your foundation? Can you truly become a cultivator? A few years ago, you used this method to force your eldest senior brother to not dare to casually fight back. But did he really not dare to fight back? That was because he was afraid of hurting you. And today, a few years later, you are still using the same method. You may have won against Yan Xiefeng, but what about your eldest senior brother? He doesn't have as much strength as you, but would he be afraid of you? Why? Can't you think about it? Because he's already at the middle stage of foundation establishment. His cultivation has already improved. He can casually kill you with just a wave of his hand. Look at your senior brother Cui. Although he entered the sect later than you, he's already at foundation establishment. Do you think that your method can still defeat him? Actually, there's no need to think about it. Just by looking at this old man's heels, I can tell that you're just like last time when you forced Xiangyang to use the most basic of techniques to kill you. What's the use of your magic treasures? Then, he sized up Xiaohua again and sneered. Look at my myriad Thunder Valley's disciple. He has an extraterrestrial divine object in his left hand, and an ancient divine spell in his right hand. Anyone who sees it will feel that it's really, really impressive. Unfortunately, even if you have another 10 or 20 ancient divine spells, can you cultivate them? If you don't build your foundation, you'll never be a true cultivator. After he finished speaking, he helplessly flung his sleeves, turned around and left. His figure quickly disappeared outside the side hall. This Xiaohua was helplessly reprimanded, and his face turned ashen. He never thought that after defeating Swallow Thunder Ridge's provocation, he would actually end up like this. Xiaohua, your master is also doing this for your own good. Zhuo Minghui clearly wanted to say something, but when she saw Xiaohua's expression, she sighed and also walked away. Yan Qinglian saw that her master's wife had left, and looked at Xiangyang, who wanted to comfort Xiaohua. She pulled Xiangyang and said in a low voice, Junior brother Xiao, I won't say anything. You won anyway, so don't think too much. Go back to the Eastern Ridge's herb garden and rest for a while. When master's anger subsides, I'll let your senior brother send a message to you. Xiangyang also nodded, patted Xiaohua's shoulder, and left with Yan Qinglian. Only Cui Hongshan was left. With a smile on his face, he said, Many thanks, junior brother Xiao. Today is a good day for me to open the sect. You also gave me such a victory, and it's also a gift that I like very much. However, Master is right. If you don't build your foundation, everything is useless. You should stop trying to comprehend those messy things and think more about how to build your foundation. You also know about my cave, so if you have time, there's no harm in coming to my cave. I definitely won't keep it to myself. I hope that my myriad Thunder Valley won't only have 1,000 years of chi refinement, but 100 years of foundation establishment. Ha ha ha. Looking at Cui Hongshan's appearance, Xiaohua's face faintly smiled, and he also said, "AI, what's this gift? If Zhenjie and the others didn't come, I's gift to you. TSK. Hearing this, Cui Hongshan's expression slightly changed. He turned his head and said, "Junior brother Xiao, are you sure you'll give that thing to me? What do you think?" Xiaohua said with a smile. "How is that possible? Such a precious thing." Cui Hongshan shook his head, and then said in a low voice, "I wonder what that thing is?" "Hee, I want to say, but do you dare to listen?" Xiaohua said with great interest. Cui Hongshan thought of his oath, and his expression unconsciously changed. He clenched his teeth, and walked out of the side hall in a flustered and exasperated manner. After waiting for everyone to leave, Xiaohua looked around. In front of the Temple of Life and Death, apart from a few disciples on duty, there was no one else. He also laughed at himself and walked away, laughing as he walked. Today is really interesting, Xiaohua thought as he flew back to the eastern mountain range. However, when he was still some distance away from the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden, suddenly, the divine senses of two late-stage foundation establishment cultivators swept over. Xiaohua immediately slowed down his flying speed, and when those two divine senses discovered Xiaohua, they immediately locked onto him. Damn it, it can't be Zhenjie's backup, right? Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. His figure simply stopped in midair, and he coldly looked in the direction of the divine senses. Not long after, two late-stage foundation establishment cultivators, one fat and one thin, cautiously flew over. While looking at Xiaohua, they also looked around. "Which family's disciple are you? Why did you run to such a remote place?" The fat cultivator asked absent-mindedly. "Junior is a helpless disciple of Thunderclap Palace's 10,000 Thunder Valley." As Xiaohua spoke, he pointed in the direction of the eastern mountain range and said, "Junior's errand job is to guard the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden. I just went to 10,000 Thunder Valley to participate in Junior Brothers Foundation establishment ceremony, and now I'm rushing back to the eastern mountain range." "The eastern mountain range's medicinal garden? Isn't that abandoned long ago?" the thin cultivator said somewhat strangely. I'll let Senior know. The eastern mountain range's medicinal garden's spiritual energy is tyrannical, and it's precisely suitable for the growth of flame dawn grass. That's why I've always planted flame dawn grass. Xiaohua smiled apologetically. "Oh, so it's like that." The thin cultivator nodded, and glanced at the fat cultivator. The two of them exchanged glances and asked again, "In these 10 or so days, 20 or so days, have you been at the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden?" "Yes, Junior's duty is to guard the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden. If there are no special circumstances, I've always been at the eastern mountain range," Xiaohua said honestly. "And then did you see a late-stage foundation establishment senior near the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden?" Xiaohua blinked and asked. And naturally, the fat cultivator's eyes slightly brightened. Unfortunately, Xiaohua shook his head and said, "I'll let Senior know. When Junior received the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden's formation token, the martial uncle who assigned the odd jobs had already warned me. There are dangerous and forbidden areas nearby, and it's really not peaceful. If there's nothing, do not walk out of the formation. Junior has always stayed inside the formation, and did not dare to come out." "Oh, no late-stage foundation establishment cultivators have come to your eastern mountain range's medicinal garden?" "No. Apart from the Thunderclap Palace's senior brothers who come every year to get flame dawn grass, no other disciples have ever come. And lead us to the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden to take a look." "Yes, please follow Junior." Xiaohua respectfully led the two of them to the eastern mountain range. When the formation was opened, the two of them looked at the neat medicinal garden, and asked curiously, "What? The spiritual energy here is very abundant, and also very normal. I'll let Senior know. Since last year, this place has gradually changed. Junior also does not know why." Xiaohua was still as honest as before. Junior intends to use a year's time to level this place and plant other spiritual herbs. Not bad. The thin cultivator's divine sense swept over, and he immediately knew. He nodded his head in praise. Chapter 1834. After that, Xiaohua invited the two cultivators into his immortal cave, and offered them some spirit fruits as well as some spirit wine from Xiangyang's place. After tasting it, the two of them were very pleased and rested inside Xiaohua's immortal cave. The two of them no longer avoided Xiaohua and started chatting. "Say, Senior Brother Qian, why would he be near the eastern ridge? What is he doing here?" "Senior Brother Qian?" Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat and his ears perked up. "How would I know?" The secret technique of the two grandmasters shows that Senior Brother Qian was last seen near the eastern ridge. We can just search for him. But the problem is, the grandmasters can't give us a definite location. It's nearly 100 miles away. How can we search for him? So what if we don't search? Sigh, it's just a senior brother who hasn't condensed his core for 100 years. There's no need to be so nervous, right? The other lightning palaces might be able to, but the disciples of the Heavenly Thunder Palace and the Earth Thunder Palace can't. If we don't find any clues, it'll be hard to explain to the sect master. Do you think the sect master will care? He's just a foundation establishment disciple. Senior brother, we'll search for him, but we mustn't put ourselves in danger. Suddenly, the fat cultivator seemed to have thought of something. His expression changed slightly and he whispered, "This place is so close to the Night Kite Valley. Do you think Senior Brother Qian will go there?" "Night Kite?" The thin cultivator's expression changed drastically. He looked around and it seemed that Night Kite was nearby. He whispered, "I don't think he'll go there. Think about it, the Night Kite Valley is a forbidden area. Golden core cultivators usually don't go there. Why would he go there? Maybe the Night Kite Valley has a treasure that can help him condense his core?" Maybe the two cultivators were a little depressed. Night Kite? Xiaohua's eyes turned slightly. What's that? Or is it a forbidden area nearby? However, his heart was like a mirror. He only brought his ears with him, and poured wine for the two cultivators from time to time without asking a single question. After waiting for an hour, the two cultivators left. Before they left, not only did they give Xiaohua a few medicinal pills, they also said, "If there's nothing else, try not to go out. The Eastern Ridge's formation has always been closed." Fear naturally appeared on Xiaohua's face. He very respectfully thanked the two of them. Only when the two of them had flown far away did he seal the formation. He scratched his chin with his hand and said with a smile, "Could it be that Night Kite Valley was the previous forbidden area? Who cares? It's not like I'm going to provoke it. I'll just let it be the culprit that killed Senior Qian Shi. However, I still have to take this opportunity to remove the formation that bastard set up." Sigh, it's not that I'm careless. It's just that the formation is too big, and I haven't had the time to deal with it. Of course, even if the two seniors discovered the formation, what does it have to do with me? This young master doesn't have an earth escape talisman, so it's impossible for me to escape underground. This young master doesn't know anything about what's underground. Following that, Xiaohua formed hand seals, and his entire figure disappeared underground. Sigh, that's right. How could the disappearance of a peak foundation establishment cultivator have anything to do with a peak chi refining cultivator? The difference is really too big. In the blink of an eye, several months had passed. The Eastern Ridge's herb garden had undergone a complete transformation. Because the fire origin had been taken away by Xiaohua, the tyrannical and scorching fire attribute spirit chi in the Eastern Ridge had lost its source. Naturally, it had returned to its original calmness. Xiaohua also had a lot of puppets in his hands. When he sent them out, they had already leveled the herb garden and planted all the necessary spirit grasses. Presumably, in a few years, this place would become a real herb garden. At this time, Xiaohua was sitting cross-legged in the cave. He clapped his hand and took out a jade slip. After he immersed his divine sense into it, he closed his eyes and pondered. After a while, he withdrew his divine sense. Then he took out another jade slip and looked at it carefully. He looked at it for a long time. Needless to say, that jade pendant was the one he had won from Yan Shuifeng at Swallow Thunder Ridge. However, when Xiaohua returned to the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden and carefully examined it, he discovered that there was indeed something recorded inside. However, the words recorded were far from what he could recognize. It looked somewhat similar to the Green Seal script, but there were also differences. At that time, Xiaohua's intuition told him that he had been tricked. However, Xiaohua didn't understand why Gantian Mountain recognized this jade slip. Until 10 days later, when Qian Diheng came to the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden and gave Xiaohua a jade slip, Xiaohua finally understood what was going on. It turned out that although this jade slip wasn't a true ancient divine item, the words recorded inside were extremely ancient. These words had long been lost tens of thousands of years ago. The number of cultivators who could understand these words could be counted with one's fingers. Of course, Zhen Jie and Zhen Weixing didn't recognize them. They only understood a few words in the jade slip. Gantian Mountain just happened to have records of these words. Although they didn't recognize all of them, they understood a little. Of course, they knew that there was some content in the jade slip. Of course, what was inside, would Gantian Mountain care? Moreover, this jade slip of Gantian Mountain was only copied and given to Xiaohua by Qian Diheng after he went back. Compared to the records in the jade slip, Xiaohua slowly explored the cultivation technique in the jade slip. He had a rough understanding of it. What Zhen Weixing said was both right and wrong. This wasn't a fire-controlling technique, but a technique similar to Weeping Moon City's Luan family's Lingyu Zhuhua. As for the real name, Xiaohua didn't know. Because of the 4 words of the cultivation technique, the first 2 words couldn't be seen. Only the last 2 words, divine fire, could be seen. Moreover, the first half of the cultivation technique was severely damaged and couldn't be cultivated. Only the second half of the flame-controlling technique could be seen. Perhaps Zhen Weixing judged that it was a flame-controlling technique from this. Thunder Ridge naturally had many such flame-controlling techniques. An incomplete ancient god technique. Maybe Thunder Ridge didn't lack it. Therefore, Zhen Jie didn't hesitate to take this thing out. An ancient god technique was compatible with Xiaohua's heavenly treasure. After looking at it for a long time, Xiaohua showed a kind of understanding. He took out the jade slip of the Luan family's Lingyu Zhuhua and compared it carefully. As he compared, his face showed a happy expression. This Luan family's Lingyu Zhuhua seems to have been born out of this flame-controlling technique. Moreover, it's a lot lower level, only less than 10% of the flame-controlling technique in the jade slip. However, this 10% is completely connected. From this 10% of the Lingyu Zhuhua, I can faintly deduce the content of the flame-controlling technique. Although I can't completely comprehend it, and can only understand 30%, it's still several times stronger than the Lingyu Zhuhua. I used the Lingyu Zhuhua to cultivate the flame seed of the Lingyu Zhuhua, and then used the flame-controlling technique in the jade slip to cultivate the spiritual fire. Moreover, just by looking at the incomplete flame-controlling technique in the second half, I can see that the flame-controlling technique in the first half is definitely not simple. Chapter 1835. Soon after, Xiaohua stored the jade strip, jade pendant and other items into his space. Faintly furrowing his eyebrows, he closed his eyes and began to comprehend. As time passed, his frown grew even tighter. This so-called primordial fire art was indeed cryptic and difficult to understand. The sun set and the moon rose. The sky was already dark and the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden was completely shrouded in the darkness of night. Xiaohua closed his eyes to comprehend. His entire body was shrouded in the starlight that couldn't be seen by divine sense or the naked eye. The dragon transformation art within his body was still operating on its own. Currently, Xiaohua's meridians still had a lot of flames formed from fire essence flame crystals. It was enough for him to reach the final stage of the 18th layer of qi refining. Around midnight, the time when the yang energy subsided and the yin energy rose, outside the eastern rich herb garden that hadn't moved for a long time, a palm-sized, bat-like spirit beast flashed out from the darkness. It came from a forbidden area near the eastern rich herb garden. This spirit beast was also the one that Xiaohua's lightning escape had awakened. This spirit beast floated in the night sky, almost blending into the darkness. There was no trace of it at all. The moonlight sprinkled down like water, but it was also absorbed by the spirit beast's fur, only projecting its figure to the ground. This spirit beast flew extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had crossed the distance of several zhang. Not long after, it approached the eastern ridge herb garden's array. The spirit beast obviously knew about the magic array. Its entire body was leaning against the outside of the magic array. Its entire body was swaying like a wave. At the same time, a wave was emitted from the spirit beast's body and projected onto the magic array. Just as the spirit beast's body was swaying, a strange scene occurred. The pitch-black layer around the spirit beast's body actually gradually wrinkled and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, the spirit beast had already entered the array from outside. After entering the array, the spirit beast was still familiar with the path and flew towards Xiaohua's cave dwelling. However, just as the spirit beast approached the cave dwelling, its body suddenly stopped and quietly floated in the air, not moving at all. At this moment, Xiaohua, who was in the cave, suddenly had a warning sign in his heart. He couldn't help but open his eyes. After looking around, he released his Buddhist awareness and looked around again and again. He didn't find anything unusual. In the end, Xiaohua even checked the fire array and the rabbit array that he had set up before closing his eyes to cultivate again. As for the spirit beast that stopped in midair, it was as if it didn't exist. After a while, it quietly flew into the cave without any movement. When it reached the rabbit spirit formation, the spirit beast stopped once more and moved in that strange manner. The rabbit spirit formation also didn't have any resistance, and the spirit beast smoothly broke through. Needless to say, the heavenly fire array was also easily entered. Xiaohua suddenly woke up with a start and opened his eyes again. At this time, the spirit beast was already crawling on the ground. That palm-sized shadow was contrasted with the darkness of the night. Xiaohua simply couldn't see it. What's going on? Xiaohua became very uneasy and stopped cultivating. He directly stood up and checked the inside of the cave dwelling. Then he walked out of the cave dwelling and looked around. He even went to the bottom of the cave dwelling to search for a while, but there was still nothing wrong. Strange. Xiaohua patted his forehead. He had always been very confident in his acuity, but even though he knew that there was something wrong today, he couldn't find a reason. I'm afraid the Heavenly Thunder Palace is looking for that foundation establishment cultivator. Xiaohua comforted himself. Or maybe Swallow Thunder Ridge's Zhenjie is plotting against me? He put a few more yellow talismans on his body, and continued to comprehend with his eyes focused on his nose, and his nose focused on his heart. Time slowly passed. The entire cave dwelling didn't have any movement. It was terrifyingly quiet. But in the night, that palm-sized spirit beast approached Xiaohua from the ground bit by bit. There wasn't the slightest fluctuation of spiritual energy. There wasn't the slightest movement. It seemed that Xiaohua, who was paranoid, didn't keep his eyes closed during this period of time, but his naked eye and divine sense could easily pass by this spirit beast. Very quickly, another 2 hours passed. Seeing the darkness before his eyes, even if he was a cultivator, it was time for him to relax his mind. Suddenly, without any warning, without the slightest sound, a black shadow reflected between Xiaohua's eyebrows. It was as abrupt as the shadow under the moonlight. Xiaohua, who was cultivating with his eyes closed, didn't feel it in the slightest. Although the starlight in the sky was currently wrapping around Xiaohua, it couldn't stop this spirit beast's strange movements. Following the strange swaying of the spirit beast, the light and shadow in front of Xiaohua's forehead slightly distorted. Looking in the direction of the spirit beast, this spirit beast was like a pitch-black membrane, an extremely thin membrane. In the center of that membrane, there was a round hole the size of a thumb. That round hole was full of wrinkles. As it trembled slightly, it emitted a mysterious fluctuation. And this fluctuation gave birth to a thin pitch-black silk-like object, which entered Xiaohua's forehead. This spirit beast's movements were like this, but Xiaohua didn't feel it in the slightest. He was still peacefully cultivating with his eyes closed. The spirit beast's black silk-like object easily penetrated Xiaohua's forehead. It was precisely the imprint of the Dharma eye between the Buddha's eyebrows. Soon after, it gradually penetrated deeper into Xiaohua's forehead, where no one had ever seen before. Right at this moment, Xiaohua's forehead suddenly moved. The spirit beast's black silk-like object immediately produced an unfathomable suction force. The black soul silk-like object that Xiaohua used to refine the soul-absorbing bell suddenly stretched out from the mysterious place the spirit beast was exploring. Moreover, it quickly intertwined with the spirit beast's black silk-like object. These soul silk-like objects were actually the same thing, and unknowingly mixed together. Moreover, these soul silk-like objects passed through the Dharma eye of the Buddha's relic. That Dharma eye was originally an imprint, but at this moment, as the number of soul silk-like objects increased, it actually gradually deepened. Xiaohua felt that something was wrong. He only felt that his entire body was swaying, and it was extremely comfortable. It was as if his entire body and mind were flying to paradise. However, this kind of comfort was extremely ethereal and extremely subtle. It was far from something that the physical body could comprehend. Just as Xiaohua was feeling this way, from the mysterious place where the soul silk-like object penetrated, a tiny crack was gradually torn open under the trembling and suction force of the soul silk-like object. That spirit beast's trembling became even more rapid, as if it wanted to tear that tiny crack open even more. However, right at this moment, the Dharma eye imprint that followed the trembling of the soul silk-like object suddenly trembled violently. An extremely faint silver light flashed from the Dharma eye imprint. This silver light was extremely similar to Goldie's silver eyes, but sometimes it was much fainter. This silver light seemed to be slow, but it was actually very fast. In an instant, it shone on the spirit beast's oval-shaped hole. That hole's wrinkles seemed to have received an extremely strong stimulation, and rapidly squirmed. This squirming obviously destroyed the spirit beast's previous mysterious trembling. The black soul silk-like object was immediately cut off, and the tiny crack in the mysterious place of Xiaohua's brain also closed at an extremely fast speed in an instant. At this moment, Xiaohua suddenly opened his eyes and saw that strange pitch-black object in front of his forehead. Moreover, it was as if his head was filled with magma, and it was incomparably heavy. Soul-absorbing bell? Xiaohua immediately felt the strange movement of the soul silk-like object, and he cried out in astonishment in his heart. However, a cry of alarm was just a cry of alarm. His body seemed to be separated from his soul and senses, and he couldn't control it in the slightest. Oh no! Xiaohua turned pale with fright. His mind turned rapidly, and he thought of Goldie, who could devour people's souls. With great difficulty, he moved his mind and entered the space. Xiaohua almost weakly called out, "Goldie, quickly save Mother!" "Mother!" Goldie saw Xiaohua's lack of strength and immediately jumped up. It followed Xiaohua's weak primordial spirit out of the space. Just as Goldie flew out of the space, the silver light on the Dharma eye of the Buddha's Sarira disappeared, and that spirit beast's soul silk-like object trembled again. As soon as Goldie flew out of the space, the spirit beast immediately sensed it, as if it had seen its natural enemy. Its whole body suddenly bent, and like a wave, a layer of ripples appeared in the air, and then gradually disappeared. Goldie saw the spirit beast, and was extremely excited. It swayed its big tail, and flew over like the wind. The third eye on its forehead suddenly opened, and with a Z sound, a silver light flashed through the silver eye, penetrating into the ripples in the space. With a Z-la-la sound, like water falling into a pot of oil, the ripples boiled, and small bubbles appeared one after another. Within the bubbles, the spirit beast's extremely thin flesh membrane appeared again. Humph! Goldie snorted from its nose. A yellow light flashed, and a powerful suction force enveloped the spirit beast. Gigi, the spirit beast seemed to be struggling with all its might, but no matter how it struggled, it couldn't escape. Strands of black gas flew out from its oval hole, and entered Goldie's nose. In the end, a circular black gas was spat out from the hole. The spirit beast was completely motionless and fell down from the sky. Mother Goldie was a bit speechless and called out to Xiaohua in a low voice. It flew to Xiaohua's shoulder, tilted its head, and leaned against Xiaohua's neck, and fell asleep. After a while there was actually a faint sound of snoring. Looking at Xiaohua again, his eyes seemed to be moving slightly, but his whole body was like a clay doll, and didn't move at all. This was even more powerful than a high-level confinement technique. But Xiaohua himself was very clear. It wasn't that he didn't want to move, but that his thoughts were incomparably fast, as if he was passing through the boundless night sky, instantly crossing thousands of li, but he couldn't grasp his own body, and couldn't find the location of his own body. Suddenly, in this indescribable space, the same kind of vibration as before suddenly transmitted, and an incomparably powerful suction force came from far away. Xiaohua felt as if he was suddenly transported thousands of li away, and arrived at a strange place. He saw an incomparably huge dark cloud covering the sky, and within the dark cloud, there was a thick pillar hanging down from the dark cloud, and connected to another place far away. The suction force came from the dark clouds, and the vibrations came from the thick, long strips. Chapter 1836. What is this thing? Xiaohua was clearly shocked by this black cloud. The black cloud violently rolled, and a feeling of returning to its nest filled Xiaohua. Just as Xiaohua was thinking about it, the black pillar suddenly shook violently, and a thin crack appeared in the black cloud. An unparalleled suction force came from the crack in the black cloud, and Xiaohua was sucked in without any explanation. Ah! Xiaohua screamed in fear, but when he saw the dusky area within the black clouds, his mind suddenly sank. An indescribable feeling was transmitted through the black pillar, and Xiaohua's mind once again fell into his own body. Incomparably sleepy, incomparably obscure, incomparably heavy, incomparably. A series of mortal feelings that Xiaohua had never experienced since he started cultivating flooded his mind. Xiaohua forced himself to open his eyelids, and saw Goldie lying on his shoulder. His heart relaxed, and just like Goldie, he fell into a sweet sleep. Xiaohua fell asleep, but his mind was still slowly changing. The spirit beast attacked Xiaohua's black soul thread through the Buddha Sarira's Dharma Eye imprint, but because of the instinctive silver attack of the Dharma Eye imprint, it was cut off. Immediately after, Goldie came out and killed the spirit beast. The soul thread was still left in the Dharma Eye, and it connected the Dharma Eye with the soul thread's attack. What was even more amazing was that Xiaohua's soul thread was also sucked out by the spirit beast's soul thread. The two soul threads were now entangled together, and they were originally the same thing. One had lost the control of the soul imprint, while the other had the soul imprint. The spirit beast's soul thread naturally fused with Xiaohua's soul thread, and this fusion process was completed naturally while Xiaohua was in a sweet sleep. Xiaohua's practice of the soul-absorbing bell was originally a beginner, and he was abnormally shaky. The easiest way to deal with a soul technique's attack was to counterattack. Under the spirit beast's attack, Xiaohua's soul thread was easily drawn out, and his mysterious soul was easily opened by the spirit beast. Fortunately, Xiaohua still had the Dharma Eye imprint, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. After the black thread fused, it gradually faded, and gradually entered the mysterious soul. Xiaohua slept sweetly for 9 days. Only on the morning of the 10th day did he wake up with the first ray of sunlight. After waking up, Xiaohua's spirit was abnormally full. He first saw the spirit beast's body on the ground. It didn't have the slightest bit of vitality. Then he saw Goldie was still sleeping soundly. Only then did he feel completely relieved. He put Goldie into the space, then cast a spell on the spirit beast's body. With a point of his hand, the spirit beast's body flew into the air. Xiaohua flipped it around and looked at it for a long time, but he still couldn't see what it was. It seemed that there were no similar records in the Imperial Thunder Sect's ancient books. This thing. It can't be the night kite that those two Foundation establishment seniors were talking about a few days ago, right? Xiaohua suddenly thought. That's something that even core formation cultivators don't dare to provoke. How? How did it end up in the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden? Furthermore, the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden's spirit formation and the spirit formation I set up are all unable to block it? Perhaps the chi refining disciples who died in the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden were also killed by this thing. No wonder that Foundation Establishment Cultivator didn't admit that he was the one who killed them. I thought he was just quibbling. Alas, fortunately, I still have Goldie. Fortunately, I still have the Dharma Eye imprint. Xiaohua was still somewhat shaken. He put the spirit beast's body into the space. When he examined the Dharma Eye imprint on the Buddha Sarira, he shockingly discovered that the imprint had already taken shape. Presumably, the Dharma Eye imprint had been stimulated by the spirit beast's instinctive silver light. It's a daunting experience without any danger. There are even some gains, Xiaohua happily thought. However, what are those black clouds and those black pillars? I feel they should be related to the soul. If those black pillars were enlarged, wouldn't they be similar to the soul strands? Damn it, those black clouds must be the mysterious place that hides the soul. The more Xiaohua thought about it, the more excited he became. He cultivated a few soul cultivation techniques, but he still couldn't find the so-called 9 heavens of spirit origin. If those black clouds were the location of the soul, then the 9 heavens of spirit origin must also be inside those black clouds. It seemed that Xiaohua still had some vague impressions of what was inside those black clouds. While thinking, Xiaohua took out the soul-absorbing bell. A few soul strands that were several times thicker than before were released from the space between his eyebrows. It was extremely easy for them to shake the soul-absorbing bell. Ha ha ha, it's true that riches come from dangerous places. It wasn't easy for this young master to cultivate these soul strands back then. Now they've unexpectedly become so thick all of a sudden, Xiaohua said with a smile. But immediately his brows wrinkled again. Huh? Why are these soul strands so thick? It's as if they were innate. Could it be that they were left behind by the spirit beast? Moreover, how did these soul strands fly out from the Dharma Eye of the Buddha Sarira? While thinking, Xiaohua used his hand to rub his forehead again and muttered to himself in a low voice. It seems that the spirit beast attacked. I have some impression, but it's also vague. Can't the Dharma Eye of delirium break? I can use the Dharma Eye to see. Oh, I have some impression. I seem to have seen it before. As Xiaohua's eyes lit up, he recalled the scene he saw before. That set of red bones, a body of blood that flickered with specks of golden silk, moving meridians, and 13,200 pitch-black specks. Maybe I can even see the location of the soul, Xiaohua thought and raised his left hand. He opened his Dharma Eye and looked very expectantly. Unfortunately, what appeared before his eyes wasn't what he expected, nor was it what he thought in his heart. In the Dharma Eye of delirium, what appeared before his eyes was truly a complete person. From head to toe, there wasn't a single spot that could be penetrated. That's strange. I clearly remember that I can penetrate inside. Xiaohua was somewhat dazed. Right at this time, the spell formation outside the Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden moved again. Xiaohua hurriedly closed his Dharma Eye. When he arrived beside the spell formation, he saw that there were actually 2 more cultivators. One of them was actually even at the core formation stage. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly opened the spell formation and bowed in greeting. You're called Xiaohua? That Foundation Establishment cultivator glanced at Xiaohua and asked. Correct, it's this junior. I wonder if Senior, Xiaohua asked respectfully. This old man is a disciple of the Heavenly Thunder Palace. You can call me Martial Uncle Qian for the time being. That Foundation Establishment cultivator was clearly more amiable towards juniors. Did 2 Foundation Establishment seniors come to your medicine garden a few days ago? Good Martial Uncle Qian knows. There indeed were. Xiaohua suddenly understood and said with a smile. However, the 2 seniors only rested at Junior's place for a while and immediately left. They also didn't leave behind their names. Junior doesn't know whether or not they were the people Martial Uncle is looking for. Did they say anything? That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.